Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of NPA 12. I'm here, Hayden McTavish, and joined by the one and the only Yuki. How are you feeling today, Yuki?
Great. It's a really exciting weekend of Pokemon, right? I don't know the last time we've had like this double-decker regional kind of experience. But yeah, I mean, I was just watching all of my Sunday, and that's why I'm a little bit sleepless, but that's all right. I'm happy to cast a little bit more Pokemon.
No time for sleep. There's too much Pokemon happening, and one of those is going to be the match that we have today. We have a bunch of matches to show from this week of NPA competition, starting with Yoshi and Lugia. Sorry, Yoshi and Lugia versus MyStars. A couple of really phenomenal competitors who we're going to get to showcase for you today.
Yeah, as you can see here, we have a lot of like accolades over on Yoshi and Lugia, three-time world's competitor, very consistent as you can tell, getting a top 16 regional finish in Vancouver in 2022, and also just being the champion of the inaugural Hatterene series, which is quite an accomplishment. Over on MyStars, we see that they were part of the Thailand national team for World Cup last year, who were champions. He also had an absolute breakout 2022, as you can tell, getting second at Thailand Nationals. So I guess a little bit of context is that I'm the manager for the detectives, and we already had MyStars on the team last year. And we already knew they were quite good, but didn't really have any official results, so we were able to get them for pretty cheap. And then, as you can tell, in that last year, had an absolute breakout performance in 2022. And we said, oh, no, other teams, you're not going to get MyStars. We're just going to poach them so that we don't have to pay that much extra money. So that worked out pretty well for us. So yeah, really happy to have MyStars. Also having the second place finish on the Twilight Wings.
Absolutely. I've had the chance to showcase both of these players on different streams in the past. I believe you have as well. And MyStars just plays so phenomenally well. So a wonderful pick for the detectives. And then Yoshi and Lugia has really been working quite a bit on some really cool teams this year as well. I believe she'll be using a team similar to the one that she used for this most recent Hatterene series when she was the runner-up.
Yeah, definitely. And now we're moving over to, I guess, the team preview. So on Yoshi and Lugia's end, I think it's quite a very a unique team. I've never seen this composition before. Maybe Hayden, you've been following the metagame better than I have, and noticed something. But the Iron Moth Fluttermane core is obviously something that's very, very strong. You can train your Iron Moth to be not as strong in the special attack, so that your speed stat is higher, and then get the booster energy boost to boost your speed, and then be able to acid spray something for your Fluttermane to just underspeed it, and go for a Dazzling Gleam or Shadow Ball or something is a pretty oppressive lead. But I just don't see it paired up with the other Pokemon, especially the Water Taurus is not very common in Series 2. So I'm very, very excited to see how that team functions.
Yeah, so this is the team that Yoshi and Lugia have been using in Hatterene series. It was a
Oh, thank
really
you.
cool finals, Baxcalibur versus Baxcalibur. And the way that she's been playing that Tauros Water and Amoonguss has really strong defensive pivots with King
Mm.
Gambit and Baxcalibur gives her a lot of really cool options. And it's really interesting to see this adjustment. She didn't have the Iron Moth when I last cast a match from her, and it's a really interesting adjustment to be able to have that fast-paced mode. But as you mentioned, it's definitely not clear a priori how that's going to work out with the other modes of the team, and so I'm curious to see how that works out here, especially versus that Palafin that's going to make it really tough to handle those fast modes. It's a really interesting team for MyStars with the Palafin and that Palmot.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think you're right though. Like Yoshi and Lugia, probably not too concerned about the Palafin, other than the two offensive leads. Like the Baxcalibur, especially the Taurus, the Amoonguss can handle those wave crashes and jet punches, especially without rain, pretty well, I think. And I'm definitely curious to see my stars team as well. Also a pretty unique team. I'm not sure if I've seen any teams with Palma that is not in Dondozo. You usually want to go for that Revival Blessing on Dondozo or Tatsugiri. So I think it's quite cool that my stars has figured out a way to make it work without Dondozo.
Yeah, that's definitely the big question I've had for all of this year is how can people find clever ways to use Pama? That Revival Blessing is just so unprecedented from before. And maybe even if it just lets you get Palafin into hero mode and then use it twice in certain matchups, maybe not this one, or just any of the many situations where maybe Pama just has a free turn to bring back something that your opponent had to expend a lot of resources to get rid of the first time around, that might be really interesting. But it looks like we're jumping right into the team preview here as the players try to decide what they want to bring into this matchup.
Yeah, so I guess looking at team preview, it would be pretty appealing to me to go for that fast mode with Floodmain and Iron Moth, like we talked about. Even if the Palafin comes in, it can't attack immediately with the really strong damage output. Even when it comes back, you always have the very strong defensive pivots that you mentioned. So I think that could be appealing from YoshiandLugia's end. But what do you think, Hayden?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I think I'm definitely curious from game one if that Palafin winds up coming from MyStars and then how it is used. Because even if Palafin doesn't switch out to get all of the powerful boosts, a Jet Punch even from base 70 attack is going to do a lot to an Iron Moth with super effective damage. And that's definitely going to be a 2-hit KO. And so I'm a bit curious if there are ways that MyStars might have to penalize using that Iron Moth, or if it is going to give Fiona just that extra little bit of momentum that she might need to be able to sort of take some KOs and then rely on the defensive backbone with that Taros and the Excalibur.
Yeah, right, definitely. I'm thinking now from the perspective of MyStars, like what you want to do. Like I actually don't think you want to bring Palafin that much. Like I think it's really advantage really is to have a very one-sided matchup against Iron Moth, but I think you already have the tools to beat it, even if it's not that consistent. Like King Gambit, for example, if it's only the Assault Vest item, can withstand like heat waves pretty well. I think if you have an Arcanine with Snarl, you can also do the same. So yeah, I think it's not exactly linear from MyStars' end, but we're gonna get right started and see how these two players are approaching this match.
Absolutely. So the first question is, what is MyStar starting with? And it looks like that Palafin is coming to begin with, along with that Fluttermane, and then the Iron Moth and the Excalibur that we saw YoshiandLugia hovering over. It looks like that's going to be that speed boost on the booster energy as we were expecting. And so this is the fastest Pokemon in the field, but it's against two Pokemon that it can't do a whole lot of damage to, and that can do decent damage to it in return.
Yeah, like if you look at it from just the first impression perspective, the Fluttermane does super effective damage to Excalibur, and the Iron Moth might get KO'd by a Wave Crash even from the baby Palafin. But for example, the Fluttermane is very physically not very. Well, I was gonna say it's not very physically defensive, so the Excalibur could do a lot with Ice Shard, but doesn't have access to Ice Shard. But we do see the Swords Dance, so that is something that maybe. YoshiandLugia could take advantage of using a defensive Terra and set up for a sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. That Swords Dance definitely has some options with there not being too much pressure on that Excalibur outside of the super effective moves from the Fluttermane. It looks like that's going to be Palafin switching out immediately to set up that hero mode for later, and there is a Terra coming out. So that's going to be that Excalibur, making sure, as you mentioned, Yuki, that it can sort of survive a little bit longer using that Poison Terra that we saw Gavin Michaels making use of very recently at Virginia. And it looks like the Heat Wave is going to be able to go out into that Fluttermane and do a decent amount of damage.
Yeah, and we see the Dazzling Gleam come back in return and is handled very well by the Excalibur, and which goes immediately for the Icicle Spear. I don't remember if we saw the loaded dice. I think we did see loaded dice items, so yeah, that's a guaranteed KO on the Fluttermane. So yeah, very I think how would I say, a textbook really well done use of Terra where you defensively use it, reduce the damage output, and then KO in return. So I think very good value on YoshiandLugia's end to use a Terra to take that knockout without taking too much damage in return. So now it's going to be up to MyStars of if he can use his Terra to bring the momentum back even further.
Yeah, that is absolutely a great insight that this Terra worked perfectly, but now YoshiandLugia has used it up. And so figuring out how to make sure that MyStars doesn't get as much impact from his Terra is definitely going to be pretty important, especially with that Palafin coming in prime position. The Excalibur has lowered attack, so it can't do as much damage. That Jet Punch now is going to be really scary for that Iron Moth. And yeah, we're going to see YoshiandLugia just switch that out, not wanting to have anything to do with that Palafin.
Yeah, I think that was a great point that you brought up, though. Like the Baxcalibur actually teared into a type that is not strong into the Palafin. So basically, YoshiandLugia lost one defensive mon to the Palafin. But we go ahead and see the Flare Blitz come out into the Baxcalibur, which isn't negated, but still boosts the attack with the thermal exchange, which is a pretty interesting interaction, I think. Usually those kind of moves like Storm Drain kind of negate the attack, but you actually still take it. And then Baxcalibur retaliates with the Swords Dance, which further increases the attack. So looking really, really scary.
Yeah, the Baxcalibur just skyrocketed to 3 times the damage output that it would have had before. The flip side, though, is that Flare Blitz does get a nice amount of damage because of that thermal exchange not giving the immunity. And so I'm not sure, because of that Taros coming in and lowering the attack stats, that Palafin probably can't pick up that KO on Baxcalibur, which gives it a chance to maybe do a whole lot of damage here. Although it looks like we might be seeing that Terra Water come out. So maybe that Palafin is going to be able to handle the Baxcalibur with that Terra. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it also depends on how these Pokemon are trained. Yeah, well, the Taros moves first, which is probably expected. And wow, the Palafin's faster than the Baxcalibur, which is huge. Even at -1, I think this might knock out the Baxcalibur, and yes, it does. Wow.
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, that Terra totally being flipped on its head with the Palafin coming in. That is a really interesting way to handle Baxcalibur, to just threaten it with enough attacks that it has to Terra, and then it's suddenly pinned with the Pokemon in the back. Especially with, like, that first turn, it looked so bad for MyStars, but he was simultaneously forcing a Terra and setting up the Palafin to be much stronger in the back, to be able to get KOs even through Intimidate. That's really cool and going to be really interesting for YoshiandLugia to have to think through going forwards how to handle that.
Yeah, you're super right. And I think Palafin's a pretty interesting Pokemon because I think it's the only Pokemon I can think of, at least, that is has only one typing and is commonly used, that type being commonly used as its Terra type. Even like, for example, Goldengo, it might use Steel as its Terra type, but it gives a lot of value to it, right? Because you take less damage from Sucker Punch and Shadow Ball. But Palafin, you don't really get anything from it except for the extra boost in attack. So it just goes to show how much trainers really want to use it as a offensive powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. While that Terra pays off, though, YoshiandLugia is able to sneak in one more KO, take out that King Gambit, and now it is just 2 Pokemon left for MyStars. So it's going to be a challenge to be able to make it through the rest of this game with that Palafin that's stuck at -1, I believe, for the rest of the game. And then... but wow, that Terra is incredible. That is so much damage onto that Taros, which is normally pretty physically bulky.
Right, yeah. It's quite impressive being -1 and being resisted. You still do 2/3 of damage. I think that turn, obviously, I think very impressive that for MyStars to read the Protect and attack the Taros instead, which is resisting the Wave Crash, but loses the King Gambit for free in return. So maybe MyStars predicted YoshiandLugia to predict the switch on King Gambit and go for a Raging Bull, predicting the Arcanine to switch in. But yeah, just goes for the honest close combat and sort of gets punished for MyStars gets punished for reading a little too much. So as you said, now that Palafin is locked into -1 and potentially even worse if the Taurus decides to switch out. On the other hand, though, MyStars is in a good position because the Flutter Mane just protected. So something like a Flare Blitz and a Jet Punch could knock out that slot. So we'll see how that goes.
Tara's going to elect to switch out, clear that attack drop and the defense drop, and set itself up to maybe do a little bit more later. Iron Moth coming in, it's not going to be able to do very much if it has to take a Wave Crash, but something has to switch in for that Taros. And we're going to see Flutter Mane does get targeting correct, so it's able to get a lot of damage onto that Palafin. That could be really crucial as the Wave Crash comes out into that Iron Moth. So it's going to take a KO, but that might be enough recoil to finish off that Palafin, which is pretty important for YoshiandLugia because that Taros can definitely handle the Arcanine if this Palafin goes down.
Right, and yeah, with the Palafin knocking itself out in its recoil, I'm not too sure if the Arcanine can handle, especially a Taros who can just, Raging Bull, or even just safely go for the Aqua Jet and knock it out alongside the Flutter Mane. So yeah, I'd say that MyStars even got punished that previous turn for being a little bit too passive and protecting the Arcanine. Maybe predicting a switch on either slot would have been a little bit more useful, especially since if one switch is happening, then the the Arcanine can't get knocked out. So I'll be interested to see how the adjustments happen in Game 2. I think from a Pokemon perspective, maybe MyStars doesn't need too much. It seemed like the Pokemon he brought were pretty solid. But yeah, maybe just from a positioning perspective.
One piece I am a little bit curious about is that King Gambit, with that missed guess on the close combat, it wound up not being able to do very much. And I'm curious if maybe something like the Palma might give an option to bring something back, or if there are some other options as well. I think I just want to see the Palma, really.
Yeah, no, despite your, wanting to see the cute little Palma, I think that's also a really good insight right there. We saw the Mirror Herb being the item on the Tauros, so King Gambit is actually, originally not that favored against Tauros anyways because of the typing, but, at least you can get kind of the Defiant boost, but then you're gonna, boost the Tauros to +2, then it's not super strong. So, yeah, like you said, I think the Palma could be nice. I think the mainly the King Gambit is a really strong answer to the Baxcalibur, but Palma also has a very good matchup, obviously. So I think definitely that role could be played by the Palma and not be as weak to the Tauros.
So I think that's definitely a good question. The one challenge is King Gambit's the only thing that can resist everything that Baxcalibur can do. And so if there's a different position, maybe you need that as a switch-in option. If MyStars had been able to call the Terra and switch that Flutter Mane out for the King Gambit, that would have been an amazing turn 1. That would have been just able to force the Terra without losing a Pokemon. It felt like there were a lot of times where MyStars made very good middle ground plays. Like the Tauros went for close combat, but lost defense, and so the Wave Crash did a lot of damage. The Terra happened, but then you could exploit that later. But then every mid-ground play cost just a little bit too much. And so I'm curious if MyStars find some ways to just have slightly lower penalties and have maybe some defensive switching or things like that.
I think you put that really, really well. Yeah, just like losing that incremental advantage by kind of taking the middle ground definitely got punished for that. So yeah, we'll see if MyStars can think in the long term. As we jump right into the Game 2, let's see what the leads are going to be by our two trainers. We see MyStars is leading with King Gambit and Flutter Mane, so defying our expectations, while the Baxcalibur and Amoonguss comes out for YoshiandLugia. So from the leads perspective, both trainers adjusted.
Yeah, so interesting to see that Baxcalibur maybe trying to play more towards being able to handle a Palafin in the back later on with that Amoonguss being present. I think one crucial aspect we did not mention about the King Gambit is I don't think we're sure what the item is, but YoshiandLugia does know. And if that is the safety goggles, then maybe that's a really strong reason for bringing that King Gambit, because in this exact lead matchup, that's pretty crucial, being able to damage that Baxcalibur. Whereas if there isn't a safety goggles here, then we might be seeing a really powerful turn from YoshiandLugia here, because that Amoonguss is really hard to manage.
Yeah, you're right. But I guess the one thing that might make it easy to manage is the fact that it doesn't have Protect. So something like a Shadow Ball plus an Assurance seems like a pretty unpunishable play on that slot. And in return, I don't think the Baxcalibur can definitely not knock out the King Gambit, and if the Flutter Mane has like a Focus Sash, it also can't be knocked out. So let's see what happens. We see the Rage Powder come out from the Amoonguss, and the Flutter Mane goes for the Shadow Ball, which I assume might have been already targeting down the Amoonguss. And we see that it's Life Orb, and the Baxcalibur goes for an Icicle Spear into the King Gambit, so a huge read from YoshiandLugia that doesn't end up panning out.
It's a really interesting play. I wonder if there was an anticipation of what exactly the switch anticipation was from YoshiandLugia. I think it's not obvious to me right off the bat, but if that had been a Protect from that Flutter Mane. Oh, and Assurance and Shadow Ball, you called it, but it doesn't get that KO. So Amoonguss is around to still keep redirecting those attacks going forwards. That's awesome.
Right, and those two Pokemon have very high offensive stats, so I'm quite surprised to see that survival from the Amoonguss, especially without a Citrus Berry. But yeah, we see the Dazzling Gleam, which is a very nice move right now. You get damage on Baxcalibur while taking out Amoonguss, and you also set your, get some damage onto the Baxcalibur for the Assurance. So we see the Icicle Spear, which will, no doubt, undoubtedly take down the Flutter Mane. A turn late this time, which is big for MyStars. But let's see if the Assurance ends up coming out.
This Assurance really makes this King Gambit a whole lot more scary than it would have been otherwise if it had just been going for those 80 base power dark attacks, but with 120 base power on that attack. That is, the Baxcalibur is down very low. And the Flutter main went down pretty early, just like last time, but as you mentioned, that one turn mattered so much. It took a whole KO, and now that Excalibur's really low, and Pama does come back, so maybe that Flutter main is going to hit the field again.
Yeah, I think this is looking great for MyStars. Just that one turn delay means that YoshiandLugia has one less Pokemon than the first game, and the back caliber is really, really low. And we have the level of Palmet, so I think everything's going great for MyStars, except for the fact that Tauros just got a +2 boost. So I think the Palmet will definitely have to, kind of tunnel vision down onto Tauros to knock it out before it can do any serious damage. Given it seems to be the only Pokemon left for YoshiandLugia that can hit the Kingambit very hard.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty important, is how YoshiandLugia can make use of that attack boost on the Tauros. One really interesting piece is that without Ice Shard on the Excalibur, there's no option to just take out the Palmot right away. And I'm curious if that'll cause issues. Although it looks like Palmot's just going for that fake out, and Kingambit is outspeeding the Excalibur. I think I missed that interaction before, and it's able to just get that KO right away without having to worry about the Icicle Spear finishing off the Palmot. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd say MyStars went for probably the most straightforward move that turn, which ends up paying dividends for him. For example, maybe the Flutter Mane could have come in for the Excalibur, anticipating the Sucker Punch, but then if the Kingambit had gone for an Iron Head instead of something, then it'll go down its Focus Sash, and then you have the same kind of mind games with Sucker Punch again. So I totally understand why YoshiandLugia that turn just went for it instead. But yeah, it ends up paying off really well for MyStars, and now I think he's just one more solid move away from taking this match.
That's one of the really interesting things to be able to see from MyStars, is making a lot of use of the information that he has from the open team sheet. Knowing that there's no Ice Shard means that you can go for plays like this without worrying about that Palmot being chipped or the Sucker Punch not working out. And so really capitalizing on that and making it a little bit harder for YoshiandLugia to come back here. As we're seeing the Palmot go for a Terra, possibly just trying to finish off that Tauros before it's able to make too much use of that really high attack stat it has.
Yeah, but Tauros going for the Aqua Jet, wow, doing so much damage thanks to the critical hit. And then we see the Moonblast come out to the Palmet, so focusing it down big time. YoshiandLugia respecting that it's a huge threat to the Tauros despite being at -1 attack. And now the Kingambit is kind of left alone to take down the Flutter Mane to its Focus Sash. And I think MyStars just has one more Pokemon in the back to take down these two. So hopefully that's strong to the Tauros. Yeah, I mean, the Intimidate helps, but the typing matchup is just not looking good for MyStars.
That was a really tough turn to be able to account for everything that YoshiandLugia could do. One of those really interesting ways that YoshiandLugia was able to leverage the KO on that Excalibur to bring in a lot of pressure on that Palmot all at once. Not having the Ice Shard, you can instead bring something fast in, so that Aqua Jet Moonblast is a possibility. Definitely putting things in a really tough spot, as you mentioned, for handling this Tauros, which is sitting pretty with that Mirror Herb, able to get KOs on either Pokemon it chooses this turn, especially with that Terra burned.
Right. MyStars noticing that it's pretty obvious for the Flutter Mane not to attack this turn, so Sucker Punches the Tauros instead, which is great. On the other hand, YoshiandLugia also makes a clever play of taunting the Arcanine instead of just going for the obvious Protect to prevent any Will-O-Wisp from coming out. So we see the close combat go into the Kingambit, presumably an Assault Vest, so that was a pretty free KO. And we see MyStars read the taunt, go for a Flare Blitz into the Tauros. Will it get the burn? Oh, we see it doesn't. So, if this Arcanine has the access to the extreme speed, then I think there is still a chance. But given how confidently YoshiandLugia just walked in, I assume the last move is something like a Snarl instead. So, we see the Shadow Ball and the Raging Bull take out the Arcanine and give YoshiandLugia a quick 2-0 victory.
Wow, that match really turned almost completely as soon as that Tauros got the attack boost and was able to leverage those Aqua Jets. It took a turn to lose the Excalibur, but it really felt like YoshiandLugia was playing to this really powerful board game position at the end, where you were just able to take KO after KO with these really powerful Pokemon. I think Flutter Mane and Tauros Water is something I played around with very early in the metagame, and it's a really interesting mix of some cool defensive tools and a lot of really good offense. That Shadow Ball and Close Combat just hits so much of the metagame powerfully, and then you've got Water and Fairy coverage as well. Like, those are 4 attacks that are all really good, like well known for their coverage. And so being able to have that happen is going to give MyStars or would have given MyStars a lot to worry about going forwards into future games. So that's really well played by YoshiandLugia to be able to find that position so quickly.
Yeah, like you said, I think Ghost in Fighting, as we can know by, Annihilape's, dominance in Series 1, those two types are very, very good in synergy-wise, being able to hit super effectively the type that, is immune to the other one. So, yeah, I can see how that combination works out really well. And, yeah, I think, MyStars just really adjusted really well game 2. I think, like we talked about, the early game was a lot better for him. I think he might have just gone to maybe a little bit too excited with the Palmet, not seeing that potential Aquajet play, thinking, okay, I'm faster than that Tauros at least, so at the very least, I'll be able to get a knockout before it knocks me out in return. So yeah, I think that might have just been a small oversight, but otherwise, a great adjustment from game 2, and obviously YoshiandLugia, especially with how she closed out that final turn. Very impressive. So yeah, a great set from 2 players. Even though it was a 2-0 victory, I think it could have very easily had been a game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you put that very well, that there was a lot of nuance in almost every turn. Even when that Palmet went down, if that had instead been a switch into Arc-9 and Fiona had still committed that same play, that gives the King Gambit so much time to then start accruing damage on the other side of the field. With that attack boost, that would have been really difficult. And so I think nice for MyStars to find one way to potentially KO that Tauros, and then it didn't work out because Fiona covered that. But there was definitely a lot of risk on both sides for most of the plays that were made, and I think that's really interesting to have going on. That like these players are both definitely playing well enough that no one's sitting here with guaranteed wins into each particular game.
Certainly not. And yeah, with the King Gambit presumably not having access to protect, that Tauros could have easily gone for close combat into that slot instead. So, it was definitely not as linear of a turn as I may have like alluded to just now. So definitely can't fault him for that.
So I think that's all for this first set that we're going to showcase. But we actually have another one that we're able to jump into pretty quickly here. We're going to go back to back to back to back with all of these NPA sets. And the next one is going to be MiJa versus JMOdri. 2 really phenomenally well-accomplished players. I say that every time, but it really is the case here. We have the Korean national champion from 2019, Worlds 2019 top 64. 2019 was a really difficult format. Those are really impressive accomplishments, especially a Korean national champion that is such an intensely competitive region for Pokemon, going up against JMOdri with a lot of really amazing accomplishments as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's quite interesting to see the 2 different kinds of players we have here. Like MiJa on one hand is, kind of a maybe more old school. Well, I'm not sure if I can say the word old school in front of you since, you go back way more than, even MiJa or myself. But yeah, relatively so. I think there's a lot of players like maybe JMOdri whom I've started playing a lot recently. MiJa has been playing even before, the Nintendo Switch era. So I think that's quite cool. And JMOdri obviously has a lot of accomplishments both online and offline, but in more recent times. So I think this is kind of a clash between the past and the future, a paradox, if you will. So I'm excited to see how this might match up.
Yeah, absolutely. The Paradox players face off. I think that's always a really interesting question because Pokemon, and specifically, asks players to do a lot of transfer into very slightly different formats. Even just from 2022 to 2023 was a huge jump in terms of all the mechanics that are happening. And then going way back to 2019, there's a lot of changes, and figuring out what ideas you can leverage that worked in the past versus what things you totally have to change. Like Palafin, there's really been nothing like it before in competitive formats, is really an interesting hallmark for a lot of players to be able to get used to. And both of these players have been through enough shifts to be comfortable doing that. But it's always really interesting to see if someone's expertise is maybe in 2019, what do they take going forwards versus if someone's expertise is from Sword and Shield, do they try Pokemon that maybe have more analogies to things like Dynamax?
Yeah, I love your comparison related to Palafin. Like there really is nothing like it. But on the other hand, I think something like Dondozo is basically a Xerneas that can dodge attacks and attack on the same turn that you Geomancy without needing an item. So I was like, okay, why is there no reason not to use this thing? But a lot of players don't agree with me, so I'm a little bit sad. But anyways, let's go right into team preview. So we actually see the Palafin that you just talked about, which is quite exciting. And yeah, MiJa using really something similar to what Gavin Michaels was using to win the Oceania Championships. I think the only deviation, other than any individual sets that we might not know of, is the Goldengo over the Bax Caliber, which I think was quite crucial in certain matchups, but might not be that important here. And maybe the Goldengo's, pressure on, the Armor Rouge might be more, relevant. So it might be a pretty nice adjustment for MiJa's end.
Yeah, really interesting to see that Goldengo. I think sort of the standard old school choice to make if you have Rain is to make sure that you put a nice steel type on there. And so interesting to see Goldengo filling that role. It's going to be a bit tough to see how it works out, though, given that we're seeing a good old weather war here. We have the Pelipper on one side, we have the Torkoal and the Armor Rouge on the other. That Goldengo sometimes is going to be quite comfortable doing a lot of damage, maybe hurting that Armor Rouge, but it also has a Pokemon that can hit it super effectively from at least 3 different sources from JMOdri, 4 different sources. There's the 2 fire types, there's the 2 of the 3 Paradox Pokemon. They can all hit it really powerfully. So we'll have to see how that plays out. At the same time, though, I'm really curious to see how this weather war plays out. I think that on paper, I normally think of Torkoal as being at a disadvantage versus Pelipper because even with Torkoal's weather up, they're really only about neutral. That water damage is still doing a lot. But it does give a lot of really interesting options to work around the Palafin and to do a lot of damage to things like that Amoonguss and Goldengo that were relying on the rain otherwise.
Right. And I think the call out on the weather war is great because until this weekend, Torkoal was not that present in the meta except for like hard trick room teams. So we don't really see these weather wars. So I think this will be a great showcase of who is favored in this weather war. And I also think JMOdri's team is quite cool because it's a little bit reminiscent to me of maybe like maybe not Rinya's Sun, maybe Rinya's Sun, but it's like a team that really takes advantage of the sun, right? Like we have 2 Paradox Pokemon that obviously get their boost from being in the sun, but then we also have the Armor Rouge who gets an increase in the firepower of its armor cannon through being in the sun. So I think that's quite interesting. It's a take that is quite new to Series 2. So I think both these teams are quite cool, and I'm excited to see how they match up.
Yeah, it's really interesting to explore how well Torkoal works in this format. I think that a lot of people thought it was going to be really powerful with the interaction with the Paradox Pokemon, but it definitely hasn't seen much success until just a couple of hours ago when it was doing finals at Knoxville. And so I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how it works here, and if JMOdri's maybe settled onto something that's going to be really powerful here and going to be an interesting answer to all these Palafin Rain teams, or if Palafin Rain winds up having a really positive matchup into this.
Yeah, that's right. And we go ahead and see the leads here with the Indeedee and Roaring Moon for JMOdri's side, whereas we have the Dragonite and Palafin for MiJa's end. Just the way that JMOdri brings out the Indeedee and Roaring Moon together kind of signals to me that the Roaring Moon has some kind of setup move. Maybe not even a Tailwind, more like a Dragon Dance, just so that the Follow Me gives a lot more value. And with the Roaring Moon, already have a boost. With the booster energy, I couldn't really tell which one it boosted, but either way, paired with the Dragon Dance, it's going to either be really fast or hitting really hard, especially with the Acrobatics and a potential Flying Terra.
If it does have that setup move, that's going to be a really interesting way to handle this Palafin, setting up the Psychic Train so that none of the priority attacks are an issue, and then also making sure that you capitalize on this first turn having a little bit less momentum, as if you called it, there comes the Dragon Dance. So either this Roaring Moon has a lot of attack, or it has a lot of speed, but it has a pretty good amount of both, and it's going to be able to do a fair amount of damage, and Indeedee not feeling like it needs to go for that redirection, going to just do a Dazzling Gleam, make sure that Dragonite's multi-scale is broken if that's what it had, but Roaring Moon is going to take an Ice Spinner there, and the Psychic Terrain is going to go down, so that's going to make things a little bit more precarious for this Roaring Moon here, and for the team as a whole once that Palafin comes in and can start going for those jet punches.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a great turn from both players. I think JMOdri kind of expected MiJa to respect the Follow Me, so didn't go for the Follow Me. That was quite obvious, and went for a Dazzling Gleam to really take down the multi-scale from Dragonite, and then go for the Dragon Dance on the Roaring Moon. But MiJa totally punishes that with an Ice Spinner that is not only super effective to the Roaring Moon that originally has very low defensive stats, but crucially getting rid of the Psychic Terrain so that now the Extreme Speed is threatening the Roaring Moon. So excellent play from both players, but I think MiJa definitely got a better end of the trade there.
especially with this Goldengo here, able to threaten spread damage. So there's no way to just redirect and make sure the Roaring Moon survives this turn. As we see the Terra coming out on that Goldengo, going to be able to make sure that it does a ton of damage with that Make It Rain. Sure, indeed, it can redirect the priority attack, and Roaring Moon can get one attack off, but it's really only going to get one attack off. So this Dragon Dance not necessarily paying dividends, although indeed making sure that this one turn is as impactful as possible. With that Throat Chop getting a KO with the multi-scale broken, that is a lot of damage.
That's right, but I think the Goldengo is ready to retaliate, jumping up to make it rain. Definitely get that knockout Roaring Moon, and wow, doing a ton to that Ndidi. So yeah, based on the moveset, we know that it's not a choice specs, but maybe a life orb, given how much. Yep, it's a life orb. So yeah, excellent play and turn from MiJa. And now the we see that there's a Palafin in the back, and if it's especially powered by the rain, I'm not sure if JMOdri has two main defensive tools left to take this. Although I believe they haven't used their Terra yet, so that might be something that will help them out a lot.
Seeing Torkoal come out here, gonna set that Sun and make sure that this Palafin can't do too much, but we saw what MiJa has in the back. We know that this Goldengo can just pivot out into that Palafin immediately and set this Palafin up to do as much damage as it would like. It can get a KO on any Pokemon on the field if Rain gets set up right now. There is sort of the challenge of as soon as Pelipper hits the field, maybe if that Torkoal immediately switches out, there's a way that you can have Sun on the field going forwards. But in general, MiJa has just played this game phenomenally well to have a lot of pressure even before the Palafin hits the field. And now there's a whole nother wave of offense coming with the Palafin.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think the scary part is that MiJa has a very safe play of going for Make It Rain and Wave Crash into the Torkoal. Like you mentioned before the match, like even if the Sun is up, it's basically neutral into the Fire-type Pokemon. So Wave Crash will probably do a lot, especially with the Mystic Water and being in the hero form. And yeah, like Torkoal, not known for its special defensive stats, so even though it's resisting the Make It Rain at -1, it'll still probably do a lot. But MiJa disagrees, just goes straight for the Pelipper, just wants to make that Wave Crash just crash through JMOdri's team. So let's see, we get the Torkoal to pivot back, so great call on your end, Hayden, and great call on JMOdri's end to anticipate that Pelipper coming in. Let's see what it targets down. It targets down the Flutter Mane, which clearly doesn't have the Focus Sash. But what does Ndidi go for? If it goes for a Trick Room, I think this could be a big comeback play, but it's a Dazzling Gleam.
So Torkoal manages to make sure that Sun comes up, but losing that Flutter Mane is so huge. I think that it would have been difficult for Flutter Mane to do very much, given that it was one-shot by the Jet Punch, but now being in the situation where Pelipper can switch out and then switch back in, and Rain will definitely be up for the rest of the game, there's no longer a way to set up that Psychic Terrain, so once Rain is up, that Jet Punch can do a lot to Torkoal. Even that Wave Crash and Sun, as you mentioned, can do a lot of damage. Things are looking pretty precarious for JMOdri with that immediate KO from Palafin. Palafin is just such a scary Pokemon, being able to threaten all that, as we do see the Pelipper switching out, getting ready to set that Rain up again in just a turn or so.
That's right, but we finally see JMOdri go for the Terra Skull. Going on to the Torkoal, which I assume is, yup, that Fire type. So I lied earlier. I think it's the only other Pokemon that can, get away with using its only type to be its Terra type as well. But yeah, MiJa not rushing for the win, going for a safe protect onto the Palafin. And on the other hand, Ndidi is going for a follow me to redirect any attacks, let this Torkoal Eruption go off, hopefully scot-free. But MiJa has seen this coming, going to just sacrifice that Goldengo, already doing a ton of damage this turn, this game, and getting a safe switch into the Pelipper so that in this 2v2 situation, the Rain will definitely be the final weather of the battle.
This Goldengo has served a really interesting role on MiJa's team in this battle. It did a lot of damage at the one time when that was really needed to finish off that Roaring Moon, even through redirection. And then it was just a Pokemon that was ready to sort of pivot in at the right times so that Pelipper was able to set up that Rain. That was a really interesting way of playing the things, and it's definitely paying off here as Trick Room still isn't up, and this Palafin is ready to go for a lot of Wave Crashes, and we're going to see just that forfeit being locked in here, not finding a way for that Torkoal to be able to finish things off with that Weather War convincingly won by MiJa.
Yeah, convincingly for sure. I think that maybe the most pivotal turn was when that Torkoal came in for the switch in instead of the Flutter Mane, which pivoted and then immediately got KO'd. Just by nature of not having the Trick Room set up already, having Ndidi and Torgal just doesn't exert that much pressure. But if you have the Flutter main with the potential Torgal in the back, then you can threaten to KO on the Palafin, right? You can switch in your Torgal for the Ndidi, also giving you access to Psychic Terrain later in the game, so that even if the Palafin protects, you can prevent any jet punches from knocking out your Flutter main. So, I think that might have been an adjustment that could have helped JMOdri a lot that match. But overall, yeah, I think it was, very, very well played by MiJa's end, just positioning very well with the weather, not rushing for the win, just making very, very safe, end game pins.
I wonder if that Goldengo is playing a more subtle role than we realized in that position, where sure, that Flutter main could have come in and been in a much better position than forcing the Torkoal out and then having the rain reset. But that Goldengo, even at -1 special attack with that Terra locked, it wasn't weak to Ghost. There wasn't really an easy way to damage it, and it would have just continued to do just a whole lot of damage throughout the field. And so I'm curious to see if this Goldengo continues to be brought, because it seems like it's doing a lot of really subtle and interesting things in this matchup that make it harder to win the weather war.
I think that's a great point that I might have underappreciated, is the fact that Goldengo just applied so much pressure that the Flutter main couldn't afford to come out. And especially so if that Flutter main has the typical aggressive Terra type and Fairy, then you can't really shut out the Goldengo that way. But on the other hand, if it has something like a Steel Terra type, which I've seen pick up especially events this weekend, then it kind of flips it on its head, and even a Shadow Ball probably doesn't even do half with a Life Orb, thanks to the sky high special defensive stats of the Flutter main, especially if it's trained a little bit bulky on the HP side. So, I think it would be nice to know what that kind of information is, but we can only kind of guess right now. So I'm excited to see if there's any adjustments that are using a defensive Flutter main.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. Is this Flutter main either might need to go back to the drawing board because it was knocked out by the Jet Punch, or maybe it can be played a little bit more defensively, or maybe sent out before that Torkoal to give an option to maybe win that weather war, to maybe handle this Goldengo so that it's not as much of a pressure, allowing that Pella for Palafin endgame to happen. We are going to see a Goldengo coming out, and Mouse on the Night, I believe we're seeing a different set of Pokemon here.
Yeah, I think we're also seeing a different match, so maybe our production crew could help us with this one as we wait for the other match, which I think is this one. Very quick adjustment.
All right, so we're going to be able to see Game 2 of this particular set. 3 for Loop made sure you were paying attention and you could detect that the Goldengo was on the wrong side of the field. And now we're ready to see this Armarouge coming out with the Ndidi, maybe trying to play into that trickery mode that seemed like it might have made Torkoal really strong in the endgame. And we're seeing the same lead come out from MiJa, just happy to use that Ice Spinner to break the Psychic Terrain and get that Palafin set up for later.
Yeah, and I think this is the more expected lead from JMOdri. Nothing on MiJa's end really resists the combination of Armor Cannon and Expanding Force, so it's a pretty strong mode. And knowing that, MiJa probably led the same Palafin Dragonite lead game 1. So I have a feeling he has some kind of plan here, so I'm pretty excited to see how that turns out. And JMOdri doesn't really have that much leeway, right? Like, he already lost game 1, so he can't really just kind of see how MiJa does this and adapt. He needs to win this game. So I think the pressure is all on JMOdri. But again, I think the remote is very strong. So let's see what happens. We see the Ice Spinner go out into the Ndidi right away, getting rid of the Psychic Terrain.
Ice Spinner clearing that Psychic Terrain, huge for handling that Expanding Force, but it's actually an Armor Cannon coming out here. Going to do a little bit less damage than that Expanding Force would have into the Iron Hands, but would have been amazing if that were still the Goldengo switching in here. And that's going to give a chance also for Ndidi to set up that Trick Room. It held off for all of game 1, but it's timing things now so that Trick Room is set up. And this Armarouge at -1 defense is still going to be able to keep putting some pressure out. But with that Iron Hands in position, able to fake out because of the broken Psychic Terrain, there's a lot that MiJa can do to sort of stall this out, or maybe leverage the fact that Armarouge has lowered defense and is a little bit faster naturally than the Iron Hands.
Yeah, that's right. And I think at first strike, JMOdri might look a little bit disadvantageous. You lost your terrain and you took some damage. But actually, with the Trick Room set up, I think this Armarouge really is set up to sweep. If you get the Psychic Terrain back up, then, no more extreme speeds, no more jet punches, and you get to really beat a slow Pokemon and do a lot of damage. and take advantage of the Trick Room. So I'm excited to see how MiJa might be able to stall this out. I think the Dragonite could be a big first step, especially since I believe it still has its multi-scale intact.
Dragonite leveraging that multi-scale and its ability to do a lot of damage committing to Terra here. Armor is going for Protect to make sure it's safe from a Fake Out, which looks like it just took, and then whatever that Dragonite decides to go for, which is going to be a Terra Flying boosted Terra Blast into that Torkoal, going to do not quite half. Torkoal really leveraging that physical defense, but crucially, that Eruption is now worse than a Heat Wave in terms of the amount of damage it's doing, and so there's not this pressure of Torkoal just doing a lot of fire damage to finish off this game by any means. It's just set up the Sun for Armor Rouge and given a chance to maybe put Psychic Terrain back into play.
Yeah, I think from JMOdri's perspective, he doesn't mind the damage too much there. I think it was really smart for him to protect because a double up onto the Armor Rouge could have potentially ended the game for him if he didn't protect. I think now, the Torkoal can just become kind of like a weather pivot and really make your Armor Rouge the win condition. Like, you can switch out the Torkoal just like JMOdri does right here, bring the Indeedee and just do tons of damage Expanding Force here, especially with MiJa already committing the Terra. Really nothing on his team now resists this Expanding Force, and you can just keep doing this without any, fear of any priority moves. So I think the only way MiJa can come out of this one right here is to Ice Spinner, immediately anticipating this switch in. But let's see what happens. Expanding Force comes out, getting Pelipper all the way down to his Focus Sash and, chipping away Dragonite out of that multi-scale. Definitely going to be a KO on the next one. But let's see what the Dragonite goes for. It goes for the Terra Blast. Armor Cannon brought its defensive down. Is it going to go for a knockout? Oh, it goes. That's huge.
That is absolutely essential. One way to stop the Expanding Force is to go for the Ice Spinner. That's what Dragonite did the first time, but Dragonite is losing patience with this game and is happy to just take the KO on the Armor Rouge. With that Armor Cannon being pushed, again, Gholdengo putting in some work that could have just been an Expanding Force into that slot, but really that worry of the Gholdengo coming in meant that Armor Cannon maybe made sense to go for, and suddenly that made that Terra Blast into a KO. And now, unfortunately, this Flutter Mane needs to come out in Trick Room. Without there being this Expanding Force option to finish off that Dragonite. Dragonite's still sitting pretty comfortably at 2/3 hit points and no longer threatened by really many powerful attacks on the other side of the field.
Right. And yeah, I don't know. It's very unfortunate to see the Flutter Mane being in Trick Room. Maybe a Torkoal could have been interesting because you kind of force the Pelipper out, so you get an Eruption that is, kind of uncontested. Although I guess, like you said, its power has gone down a lot due to the chipping from earlier, so yeah, maybe scratch that. But the Flutter Mane, despite being in Trick Room, might not be positioned too terribly. Like, the Indeedee can go for a Follow Me to prevent any big attacks going into it, and it can retaliate with a strong attack that might be able to take down Dragonite, especially since it doesn't have the Assault Vest item, which is exactly what JMOdri goes for. Goes for the Follow Me. And let's see if it can take this Terra Blast. I'm not too hopeful, but oh, it just survives. That's actually a big survival as JMOdri retaliates with the Dazzling Gleam, which also misses out on the KO. Wow.
There's some really nice survivals all around, but I think overall in MiJa's favor, having that Iron Hands able to just sit there and continue stalling out this Trick Room. And then Dragonite has just been doing so much damage to every Pokemon. The one nice piece about setting Flutter Mane out in Trick Room, though, is once Trick Room wears out in the next, I believe, next turn or possibly 2 turns from now, it's going to still be in position to be doing a lot of damage. The challenge is that Palafan is still sitting in the back and waiting to come in, and we know that Jet Punch will finish off the Flutter Mane unless Sun is up or Psychic Terrain.
Right. I think the only saving grace, though, is that the Psychic Terrain, thanks to it being broken and then set up again, it's going to have at least probably 3 more turns. So if JMOdri can position the Flutter Mane in Sun against the Palafin, there's no threat of the Jet Punch taking it out before it can attack. And if it has that Fairy Terror that we talked about, it might be able to do some huge damage to Palafin. But we see the Drain Punch taking the KO on the Indeedee before it can do anything. And now the Dragonite can also attack scot-free into this Torkoal, which it does with this Terra Blast, which it saw take only half last time, so presumably it will survive again, which it does.
So nice for Torkoal to be able to survive, but we're now down to few enough Pokemon that MiJa has once again won the Weather War. That Pelipper is still around and going to be able to set up that rain. So if MiJa can last the next few turns, as you mentioned, Psychic Terrain was reset, and so it lasts a little bit longer. But if you can stall those next couple of turns, then MiJa's going to be able to bring in that Pelipper, get rid of the Sun, have that Palafin ready to just Jet Punch that Fluttermane and finish it off.
Yeah, that's right. But we see that the Trick Room is over, so the Fluttermane can attack with no threat of extreme speed or any other priority move. And it becomes a 2v2 again, just very reminiscent of the first game. But yeah, I think it's still also similar to game 1 where it's not super advantageous for JMOdri. Yes, the Pelipper's down to 1 HP, but the Palafin, more importantly, is full health backed by the Rain. So unless we see some kind of Grass Terra from the Fluttermane, which would be pretty exciting, it's not looking good for JMOdri.
Exactly what you mentioned. If it is a Grass Terra, that's spectacular. But otherwise, these two Weather Setters, both sitting at about 2 hit points, are going to be in position. They worked really hard, but the Pelipper has come out on top, and it's going to be able to set up that Rain, and this Palafin is able to do a lot of damage after it maybe stalls a turn or two to make sure that that Psychic Terrain goes down and it's able to just go for that Jet Punch. So we are going to see that Terra. It's pretty crucial to know what this Terra type is, but it is that offensive fairy. So the Grass Terra that you mentioned would be so helpful. I think that JMOdri agrees, but can only go for that Fairy Terra and do a little bit more damage.
That's right. As we see MiJa go for the Protect one to start the last turn of Psychic Terrain. Pelipper doing the same. Very, very safe Protect that can't really be punished. And I think we're just going to see some animations of moves that we don't know the identity of. And yeah, I think we will see the Psychic Terrain fizzle, which is a lot sooner than I expected. I expected to have at least one more turn, but fortunately for MiJa, it's going to, I think, end this turn. And yeah, I think unless that, Fluttermane has taken lots of, I forgot the defense boosting, energy drink's name, but I think it's not going to be able to survive regardless. This massive Jet Punch coming out from this Palafin, and now it's just Pelipper is left to Hurricane away this Torkoal to give MiJa the win for this match.
A phenomenally well-played weather situation. That Fluttermane trying to do so much damage, but it didn't drink all of its irons or its HP ups, and so it was stuck without being able to have that Jet Punch activate. Really, really well, precisely timed game to be able to handle all the different timer effects that were on the opposing side of the field that JMOdri had. They had Sun, there was Psychic Terrain, there were so many ways to handle that Palafin. But this really cool thing that Palafin can do is just come out on turn 1, switch out, and then just wait for the precisely perfect time to come back in. And with that Pelipper ready to make sure that when it comes back in, it has the Rain. That was just so scary and difficult to deal with for JMOdri, and we really got to see why it is that Palafin has been taking event after event after event by storm this last couple of months in this series too.
Yeah, absolutely. And MiJa really showing his 2019 prowess in mastering the Weather Wars. We knew how important it was to know how to use weather back then. So yeah, clearly transferred over into this rule set. I think over on JMOdri's end, definitely still played pretty well. I think the adjustment in game 2 was pretty solid. I think I liked that a lot, but the most crucial part was being a little bit more delicate, I think, with the Armor Rouge, like just really respecting that that's kind of your win condition there. And even something as slightly as subtle as, the turn 1, going for the Armor Cannon, great to predict switching out of the Palafin immediately, but if you use something like the Expanding Force, even if you know that the Ice Spinner is going to, take down the Psychic Terrain, you still get some damage, and most importantly, you don't lose the defense and special defensive stats with Armor Cannon. And then, if that didn't happen, then maybe you would have survived the Terra Blast or whatever move it had taken that one shot at it, and it would have been able to Expanding Force more than once, which would have been really advantageous for JMOdri. So, yeah, I think that could have been the only adjustment there, but otherwise, very, very well played set from both players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit that just right. I think that if maybe you'd been able to do some damage to the Dragonite as well to break its multi-scale, there was just such phenomenal play from MiJa to make sure that the Dragonite was able to leverage all of the turns that it was around and comfortably able to do damage with that multi-scale. And JMOdri did a great job of breaking multi-scale immediately in game 1, but it was a bit harder to fit that in game 2. And so maybe an Expanding Force, even into the other slot, would have given a lot of options going forwards. But definitely overall phenomenally played. Those games were quite close, and it really took some technical and really expert play from MiJa to be able to come out on top with a matchup that was already quite favorable with that. Like, Rain often beats Sun with the ability to do a lot of damage, even in Sun. And so it was nice to see that played out.
Yeah, that's right. Well, but I think as we can see here, that brings Puppies up to a 4-2 lead. So the Symbionts can try to use their last 2 matches to tie up the week. But yeah, Puppies obviously looking very favorable for the week already. So on the other hand, as you can see, the Detectives versus the Cruisers, that match earlier won by YoshiandLugia had tied up the week for the Cruisers. So Cruisers looking very, very strong. Having 2 wins and 1 tie so far, whereas the Detectives have so far had 1 loss and 2 ties. So, not too bad for both teams, but we still have 5 weeks or so left. So, still lots of more Pokemon to see, and for these teams to, go up and down the ladder, as we say.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of lots and lots more games to see, I believe we're going to be able to throw it over to a few of our other casters to cover the next 2 games. There are no breaks today. We're just jumping into a lot of different sets, but we'll be able to pass it on over to Evan and Abhay to be able to bring us these next 2 games.
Yeah, thanks so much to NPA for having us. It's always such a pleasure to cast with Hayden. I'm really, really happy to be here with you. So hopefully we have more opportunities. But yeah, we have even awesome casters as well, and Evan and Abhay coming up. So don't move away as we transition immediately.
Wow, what a transition. Hey everyone, welcome to week 3. I'm glad you guys can join us on this amazing Sunday. I'm glad you guys got to see those great matches as well. How are you doing, Evan? Oop, you might be muted, Evan. I don't know if I can hear you.
Oh, right, okay. I think I am live now. Yeah.
Oh, are we there?
I'm fine, and I wanted to say that your background looks very nice, and I'm glad it's not me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was just one of the default options on our video platform. So I'm glad I got to pick it.
Okay, let's jump into our next match. Like, let me see if I can show the matchup here. Okay, so this is a match that I believe you are looking forward to.
Oh, yeah. I am very excited for this match between HupuMetapod, aka Zhejiang, and Sven. So, for those who don't know about HupuMetapod, he really broke out last year in 2022, cutting Milwaukee, topping NAIC, doing well later in the London Open as well. Really just like making a name for himself kind of out of nowhere and really being able to show how strong the talent from China really is with regards to VGC.
Yeah.
Yep, you can go in.
We noticed him like slowly climbing up and then finally winning Milwaukee, which was the last regionals before NAIC, right? And that just showed how like strong he is, even in such a short season in 2022. It wasn't that long, right? It's just a few months leading to Worlds in London.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a little bit of context about Jay, I also had the chance to be his manager in another draft league affiliated with Smogan. But to transition to Sven, he's also a strong Dutch player who's been making a lot more of a name for himself this coming year, especially in NPA. He's been doing really well. He also had a strong performance in a previous World Cup, I believe, with Team Netherlands. And my friend Bars, he did make me say that although Sven is very strong, he's not as cool as Bars. However, a very strong player in his own right.
Yeah, I've also noticed that he's been taking up a lot of leadership positions as the manager of many like draft leagues in the community, and like with that experience, he's just very good with scouting and very good with team presence, and I think that's very important for the team, especially for Blizzards, where Blizzards in this season, they're having some kind of a switch up in management, right, and like their style of approaching the tournament, and they've been doing so well, right? They are now at 2 wins and 0 losses, right, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's a new year, new Blizzards. They have all these different players. Normally, they stick to the same team every year. Normally, they're tied every week until like week 6. But no, they decide to start the season off with some wins.
Yeah, and I think also,
and they definitely they also prioritize Sven for sure.
Mhm.
I think spending like over 10,000 credits on him. So, yep.
true. Yeah, I'm just showing on the screen here that they also claimed another win this week, in week 3, and although this match was played before the rest, all the results were submitted, and we'll just be here on stream watching this match between HupuMetapod and Sven. I think it's still gonna be very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you ready to jump into the set?
Let's introduce their mons, then I'll set the game up.
Yeah. So just looking at the matchup, it is a mouse in the house. We got 2 mouse holds here, both assumingly they are both kind of like the follow me friend guard variant. Jay going for more of the annihilate archetype, while Sven kind of taking notes from some of the stuff that's been trending lately, going for the Sarah Ledge. Triple Ghost actually. Triple Ghost is pretty cool. So yeah, what do you think, Evan?
I've noticed mouse hole and I started to trust like people choosing it. At first I thought it was very one-dimensional, but actually it, like with the friend guard set, it's quite strong and it makes the team work well like a glue. So, and I'm curious to see why these 2 players like kind of chose these 2 teams when they were scouting, because it felt so similar, and maybe they were surprised that it turned out to be kind of a mirror match. I think like the Fluttermane and the Iron Bundle like would come right to this match from both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that, especially on Sven's end, because that Annihilate does put on so much team preview pressure, and it's something you have to respect. Otherwise, you could just instantly lose the game. The other thing to note is the Dragonite on HupuMetapods, and it could put in a decent amount of pressure into, say, like the Brute Bonnet if Sven decides to opt for more of a spore route, but we'll see.
Yeah, let's jump into the match then. But I can see why you're excited for this match because... Oh, let me change the mons at the bottom. Because the teams are just so special. It could be useful for us managers in the future for scouting.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, we got the Mousehold Goldango lead from Sven versus the Mousehold Annihilate. This makes a good amount of sense. Sven might be opting to try to set up some nasty blocks early on, while Annihilate Mousehold just makes sense as a lead from Jay. It just puts on so much pressure. So we'll see what Jay is going for. He looks like he might be going for either a bulk up or a drain punch. I'd assume probably a bulk up here. Yep. Yeah, so let's see what's going on.
Seems like both sides want to go for the approach of follow me plus setup. Jay actually locked in the bulk up from the Chinese that I can read on the screen. And I'm curious to see whether the Goldango would go for that nasty plot. But then when would they start, doing damage, and when would they start attacking each other? I think the Annihilate right will be harder to attack because the Rage Fist boost will just keep boosting. But wow, just a Terra right off the bat.
Yeah.
Ghost Terra.
Yeah, wow. I guess, is this the Terra on Svensson? Okay, I guess he's saying that he does not want to get
drain punched.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want to get drain punched or rage fisted immediately on the Goldango, and he just wants to make sure it has as much health as possible while it sets up this nasty plot. But we'll see how it goes, because Jay taunted the Mousehold this turn, he could potentially go for a beat up this next turn and apply so much pressure, especially since the Mousehold's the ghost.
Yep, then Goldango went for make it rain, right? Wait.
Yeah, we could see him make it rain from the Goldango, but at the same time, Jay could counter that with potentially a Terra on his Annihilate and just to absorb a lot of the damage along with the Friend Guard, but we'll see what he chooses to do.
Yeah, I think overall a very good start for HupuMetapod. I'll call him Jay. And that taunt just helped a lot, into that mouse hole. Yeah, very strange Terra right off the bat. Might bite Sven in the back later, but let's see how it goes. Now it's time to go for beat up, right? It's a good time to do it and just take KOs left and right.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to call it a game right now. Maybe Sven has an idea of how he was planning to approach this type of matchup, since I'm assuming he has some comfort with the team that he brought. But yeah, this, at least from our point of view right now, it looks very difficult for Sven to really like withstand this pressure of the Rage Fist. That's one beat up, that's two beat up, man, and that's really, I thought these guys were friends, but nope, he's getting beat up.
I think Terra
And then-
Steel is also an interesting choice in this matchup.
Oh, he goes for the Super Fang. Really great call from Sven right there. Just absolutely covering the Terra Steel. It makes a lot of sense as well, right? Because what else can Mousehold really do here besides Super Fang? Oh, and the Shadow Ball. Just hard calling the beat up isn't enough. So,
Yeah, but Annihilate is just way too bulky. Rage Fist will now take the one-hit KO, but very cool use of open team sheet information, right? To go for that Super
yeah,
Fang.
absolutely.
And the double up was a good idea, but just not enough. Maybe the Fluttermane's in the back, like maybe Sven still has a plan, you know. But wow, this Annihilate seems to be taking control now.
Yeah, this does still look very difficult because, like, even if the Fluttermane comes in, it really only has pressure via Shadow Ball, but instead we see the Iron Bundle. But even then, like, it's not threatening a ton of damage regardless. Iron Bundle, even though it has, like, pretty high special attack, Hydro Pump won't KO this Mousehold without a critical hit. None of the ice moves are going to threaten either Pokemon very hard, so we'll see what happens here.
The Iron Bundle boosts speed through the booster energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I assume after Jay saw the open team sheet and saw booster energy on the Iron Bundle, he probably assumed speed, but who knows? If it was special attack, it actually could have given Sven a little bit more options here in terms of offense. But we'll see what the Mousehold goes for, at least. I'm assuming probably a Super Fang, since it's really all that it can do.
There it is.
This can potentially set up for maybe like a Hydro Pump or Freeze Dry knockout in the next turn. Yeah, and we see a Drain Punch go into the Iron Bundle. So Sven trying to remove this Mousehold from the field, essentially, just so he can actually start targeting the Annihilate.
Yeah, true. But thinking a few steps ahead, like, it's still gonna be tough because the Mousehold on Sven's end might not have a move to KO this Annihilate. Yeah, I think...
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the taunt wear off on the opposing Mousehold.
Oh, I think it did.
Oh, okay, we see a switch, actually.
Ah, that makes
Oh.
sense. It
Oh,
beats
okay,
the
interesting,
Drain Punch.
actually.
Okay.
So yeah, assuming reading the Drain Punch here, most likely going for like another Super Fang in the Mousehold. Really cool play, actually. But just like trying to set up like a longer term position, so you could potentially get a double knockout on both the Mousehold and Annihilate, potentially. So just follow me, doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Just
So it
knock
worked.
them out with a
It
spread.
worked. The Drain Punch actually fell into the Fluttermane, and actually on that previous turn, the Mousehold on Sven's side ended the taunt. So what a perfect
Yeah,
switch from
absolutely.
Sven though. Then now the Fluttermane can just deal damage. But he terra'd the mouse, so I don't know whether like even Dazzling Beam will kill the Annihilate here. So Follow Me makes sense from Jay's end.
This actually, the Terror Ghost is working really well for Sven here because he can't recover any HP from the Drain Punch, so he could Dazzling Beam here. Yep. It'll pick up the knockout on the Mousehold, but even though it doesn't get it on the Annihilate, he could bring in the Iron Bundle. He could potentially have the speed advantage as well and go for another Icy Wind Dazzling Beam, and honestly, potentially just clean this game here, right? Like, this is a really nice turnaround from Sven.
True.
So we'll see what Jay brings in.
Because Jay still has 2 Pokemon, right? Like, there might be a speed tie with the Iron Bundle. Ooh, but then the Iron Bundle on Sven's end wasted the booster energy, so... maybe you can outspeed the Fluttermane and try and kill it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
see.
Honestly, this is a bit tricky here because I guess we got to see it a little bit into the future as well, since we see that Jay has great Tusk in the back. So it looks like he's going for the Protect here, and then maybe if he goes for a double Protect here, just scouting out a core Protect potentially on Sven's end, because we also don't know the Annihilate speed, right? Even if Jay gets off the Icy one, it might not be able to outspeed either Pokemon anyway.
Yeah.
So, but neither player knows that. So we could see a Protect on the Iron Bundle's end as well, but I don't know. This is a little bit of a tricky position, right?
Yeah, for Sven's end, he just needs to click buttons. Like, but then, I don't know whether to call a Protect from Jay's end. But Sven really has nothing much else to do than try and attack and KO the mons.
Yeah, I think it makes sense on Sven's end just to go for, say, like an Icy Wind, Dazzling Gleam, pick up the Annihilate, and just kind of see what you can do from there. You don't really have to get the place. Oh, but instead, actually, just going for the freeze dry. Doesn't get the knockout. But I'm assuming Dazzling Gleam will pick it up. That also makes sense, I guess. If you pick up the Annihilate with the freeze dry, then you actually get a single target Dazzling Gleam into the Iron Bundle. We don't know the item on the Flutter main as well, but if it's a Specs, then that may just pick up the knockout there.
Ooh, that's true. I don't really know my calcs with Specs Dazzling Gleam versus Terra Steel Annihilate. But might be also Sash, right? Looking at the team. So maybe the items will then get revealed on this turn. Both players just down to last 2 mons, both with full health. So it can be anyone's game, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly though, I'm very impressed with Sven's ability to just bring it to this position, right? We were talking about how doomed it was, like turn 1 with the Annihilate.
Yeah.
But look at the position now, it honestly looks like Sven might win this. Oh, never mind.
No, headlong rush. The combo makes Great Task faster than the Flutter main, even faster than the Iron Bundle. So Iron Bundle needs to take a KO here. Oh, freeze dry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Freeze
so
dry.
that's the
Ooh, no,
Sash.
Icy Wind. Interesting decision not to Icy Wind on Sven's end as well. Because, yeah, I don't know, just an interesting spot because maybe he just was worried about missing an Icy Wind. Obviously there's some logic that went into his decision. Or maybe he doesn't have Icy Wind since we don't have the sheets that could offer, say, like an Encore set that has been picking up. But yeah, either way, that's game 1.
Nice. Very strong like ideas from both sides. I think Sven played very well though. He almost got it. Yeah. But
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jay had like a clearer plan, and like I think the way Jay played just put on a lot of pressure with the mons kept safely in the back. And the protect on the Iron Bundle, I think it works, right? Towards the end. Then you make sure you're faster and then you go for Icy Wind and get the free switch into the Great Task and then just attack.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even though Sven seemed to be picking up the momentum there, Jay just was able to keep his cool, figure out what his win condition was in the end, and just execute, right? So maybe we can move on to game 2? Or
yeah, I wanted to say that there was a turn where Sven lost the Mon, then he lost Goldango, but then he purposely brought in Iron Bundle first to bait the Drain Punch, and it worked. So that was very cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there we go. Game 2.
Game 2. So I guess like how would you adjust if you're Sven, right? The lead seems like it makes sense. Oh, but we're going for the Serraledge this time. Serraledge Mousehold into Annihilate Mousehold. So all the mice are on the field. We got 8 mice versus 2 ghost types. This is a bit interesting though. Yeah.
This might be bulk up Serraledge. Is that the idea of Sven's team building here?
Yeah, I would assume it's bulk up if he's following some of the trends that we've seen so far in the metagame. It is a bit difficult though, right? Because you're bulking up on both players are bulking up, and Jay has the taunt. Has still a little bit more pressure into this combination, right? Because he can taunt into the Mousehold, even if say the Serraledge Bitter Blades Jay's Mousehold, then after that he can just go for like a beat up on the Annihilate again and just apply so much pressure.
Yeah, that's so true. But wow, what a strange protect. That it worked though, because the Mousehold on Jay's end went for taunt. Then Sven's Mousehold has taunt. Nice.
Wow, these are some mischievous mice, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, but that was so strange. Like maybe the taunt could have gone into the Annihilate instead. Then both sides stop each other from bulking up. But this time, Jay actually just goes straight for the taunt onto the Serraledge slot. Sven calls it perfectly. So now, Sven still has the option to follow me and probably can also continue to bulk up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a little bit harder for Jay to set up the beat up here, right? Especially if...
Yeah.
Maybe now could be a time for Sven to go for the Terror Ghost, because that way you just prevent any real pressure from the Annihilate here. You still keep your Mousehold on the field, even if they Rage Fist. It's not like they're doing that much. It'll likely be a 2-hit knockout, but you give yourself another turn to bulk up again, say. And then, yeah, I don't know. But the Tots is doing a lot for Sven here. Oh, but he decides to go for the
He's
protect.
protecting again, like it might be another hard read. But no!
Oh, and he goes for the beat up.
Oh no, the beat up goes straight into Annihilate. I saw the move that Jay clicked, it was the Drain Punch into the mouse hole. So
Yeah.
it could also be a decent read, right? You don't allow the Drain Punch to happen, you save your mouse hole, then use the Cerulage to bulk up like we see here. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The logic like makes sense, at least on Jay's end, right? He doesn't have much else he can. If he's taunted, he can only beat up. But the bulk up is nice for Sven, but it's still a little bit scary because Annihilate has like a base 300 ghost type move, right? So even if you boosted your defense by one stage, like how much can you really withstand the ghost move?
Yeah, basically, Jay managed to accomplish the setup, and now the Annihilate is so bulky and is ready to go.
This is also like an interesting case to see like how Terra type or how you can pin Terra types, right? Because say Terra goes to the mouse hold here so you can get another turn to live the Drain Punch, but then that means you can't Terra your Cerulege and take neutral damage from the Rage Fist, right? But if you Terra the Cerulege into say a Steel type, then you start taking super effective damage from the Drain Punch and then your mouse hold get knocked out. So pretty tricky position.
Yeah, and Sven is just going for it. I'm like curious, like what if Jay just goes for Rage Fist no matter what, right? Like maybe it
Yeah, I
covers-
mean, right? He is, because he is up again as well, he does have the opportunity to apply a little bit more pressure and just go for some balls because, you know, he just hasn't been playing, right? But first we see the beat up into the mouse hold, and then what's the next move? Do we
Oh, it's
see
Drain Punch! Yeah.
Ah, the Drain Punch, okay. So Sven might have won the turn at least, and he gets the Bitter Blade off into the Annihilate, giving it another Rage Fist stack. Potentially going for the crit there, right? Since his position is like a little bit precarious, and if you do just crit there, then you end up getting a lot more momentum on your side.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't pay attention to Annihilate's item, but it is not leftovers, so...
Yeah, I believe we saw that it was Citrus Berry in Game 1.
Okay.
So we see another Follow Me, another beat up. I assume we're going to see the win from Jay here. Yeah, still kind of curious what this Cerulege is going to go for, whether it's going to attack into the Annihilate again, because like you can't recover any HP from Drain Punch right now. So maybe he's going for a similar game plan where he chips the Annihilate down enough so he could eliminate it with say like a spread move, so you don't need to worry about the Follow Me from the mouse.
Yeah, that's true. And he also needs to be aware of the Terra on the Annihilate, the Terra Steel. So maybe the adjustment into the Cerulege makes sense to always threaten with neutral fire damage. It's doing pretty well now, right? You chip mouse hole and then you chip the Annihilate a little bit. So question is, what is Sven's game plan and what's he gonna bring in the back, right?
Yeah, if we think it's still the Flutter Mane and Iron Bundle, if he brings in Flutter Mane, then you could say go for a Dazzle, but Jay can just counter that with Terra Steel. But we see the Gold Ingo, but it's still a little bit of a similar situation, right? Because we also saw that the Annihilate outspeeds the Cerulege, and because he committed the Terra already, then even if the Gold Ingo eliminates the mouse hold, the Annihilate can just get the Cerulege with a Rage Fist, or even go into the Gold Ingo with the Rage Fist if he wants to read it to protect. Looks like he's going for the Rage Fist, but no Terra, which is... We'll see.
Yeah, it's open team sheet, so you should find out what the Goldengo item is. For us, we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's similar to some of the other Goldengo Mousehole comps we've seen, it could be Covert Cloak, you know, to stop like those Snarl Drops, those Salt Cures, etc. Oh, but he does get the Protect right there. You see the Follow Me from the Mousehold, and what is Sven going for? Maybe he gets greedy with the Nasty One? Oh no, he just goes for the Naked Ring. But does nothing to the Annihilate because didn't even have to Terra Steel to... Yeah, he didn't even have to Terra Steel.
Yeah, but what an interesting play, right? Like, not afraid of the Annihilate, just going for Rage Fist onto the Goldengo to take it out.
Yeah, absolutely. But really strong, very strong play from Jay, because basically he's saying, like, look, if you attack with your... I can stay Ghost and Fighting type, right? And I know I'm not going to take too much from this Make It Rain, and even if you want to Bitter Blade me afterwards, I think I'm going to live the hit, and then I'll just remove your building. And if you protect, then I just have this beautiful position where I can just Hydro Pump your Sarah Ledge potentially for a knockout. I can also just Rage Fist it for a knockout. So yeah, honestly, at first I thought it might have been like a little bit of a read from Jay, but honestly there were some biases going his way just to make that flip.
Yeah, that's true. Like, Sven is in a very difficult position now. I think Jay just really identified that the Annihilate works in this matchup and just go straight for that game plan. Nothing much else. Like, it's very solid game plan, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like he does seem fairly comfortable with this type of composition as well, right? At least just from his play, I don't know if he's used this a lot in the past, but at least from what I'm seeing, it just seems like he knows exactly what he's doing with this team.
Interesting. Yeah. I tried to scout Jay like to prepare for the stream. Then I believe he didn't play in any live tournaments so far.
I do believe he is in China. I think he might be in China right now, actually, which could be the reason. I do know he played in like an unofficial local there, but I don't know if like any of the teams from that are local. However, we see the Hydro Pump go to the Annihilate. He lives just on 15, and yeah, we see the Rage Fist, and from here Jay should easily be able to clean up.
Oh, that's a bulked up Sarah Ledge with 1 defense boost, but Annihilate is way too strong.
Doesn't matter how buff you are if you're getting hit by a 300 base power ghost move, right?
Yeah, in this format, it's so annoying every time Pokemon survive at red health. Every time Iron Hand survives, then the Annihilate, the Hydro Pumps look so hopeful, but no. This Annihilate helps Jay so well in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to commend Sven though for at least his play during this match, especially in game 1. Like, I don't think this is an easy matchup for him at all, right? Because the Annihilate, it's just so bulky. It's hard to really like get damage on it that sticks because of the Drain Punch. Because Jay has a combination of taunt and beat up on his mouse hold, he can stop any redirection for a turn and then just go for a beat up to the next turn, right? So, yeah. Jay executed this very cleanly, but Sven didn't play that.
Yep, that's true. He fought very hard. But then overall this match just shows the power of Mousehold Annihilate and how it's still viable in Series 2, which is crazy, which is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because there's like a bit of a contrast between how much we've seen Mousehold Annihilate and say NPA this week. If you had a chance to look at some of the results, Mousehold Annihilate is actually popping up a little bit more, but we actually don't really see that in some of the regionals that happened this weekend or in prior weeks. I don't remember really seeing any. There might have been like 1 or 2 Mousehold Annihilates at OCIC. I believe like Pengi got 17th with it. So yeah, this is something we could see pop up a little bit more because honestly, all the times that I've seen players use it, they have been very strong.
Yeah, I'm scrolling. Later we can scroll through the matches on the screen, like all the matches from week 3. But I also want to point out that let me transition back to us. I also want to point out that in the what was it? This Knoxville stream. In Knoxville stream, they showed day 1 top 12 mons. And then in day 2 top 12 mons, Mousehold appeared. Like, I think number 12. Yeah, so...
Yeah, we've really seen the use of Mousehold without Annihilate. It's almost like a Yankee with no brim, but here we're seeing like a little bit of a comeback. And Sven actually just sent me a DM to give a little bit of context why we didn't see Icy Wind that game 1.
Okay.
Because there was no Icy Wind, it was running on court.
Oh,
so
makes sense. Yeah, Encore...
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, some people choose Encore over Icy Wind. It makes sense. Like, sometimes when it works, it's so cool. But then, unfortunate. The way like Jay controlled the game. Sven fought really hard.
Yeah, Sven put up a good attempt, but Jay showing absolutely why he's a strong player and giving Monarchs like a little on the differential side, right? Even though they lost the week 5-3, and honestly, even though they're Monarch, they're looking like a little bit like a race right now with their slow start. So,
I'm gonna see.
But yeah, Jay at least giving them some momentum.
Where is he? I'm gonna try and show it. Ta-da! So the week is complete.
Yep, 5-3 Blizzards. Good job, Blizzards. 3-0 start to the season. Normally they got 3. I don't want to keep saying this. I'm sorry. But yeah, honestly, very impressive. the Blizzards. Really good use of kind of how they focused on some more Chinese players and say Lily, Kyogre, SG.
Yes.
But they and C Lin as well. It's all very strong players, all won the week as well. And then Jay won this week too. Did every Chinese player win in this matchup? Just
yes.
once again,
dear.
showing why there's such a strong region. Sadly, they don't really get to compete like on the live circuit like that unless they go out to some regionals in North America or Europe, for example. But yeah, good job.
So, like, what I want to point out very quickly, Kyogre SG's team, the non Tatsugiri Dondozo team. So
yeah, absolutely.
Chinese players have a lot of creativity and a lot of experience on the ladder. They can make plays like very quickly and it just overwhelms you. Sometimes you don't expect what they're gonna do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really impressive how they're able to just like process the game very quickly and understand certain board states. Part of it could be because they ladder so much.
Yes.
So we've seen kind of this theory with, say, players like Maluka and Emilio, where we've seen them translate their ladder capabilities to live results because they've just been in some of these positions so many times. And I've also gotten the chance to see it, let's say, REVGC on our MPA team in the Samurais. So yeah, very strong.
Then to go back to your point, like the mouse holes are really everywhere. I mean, for this match.
Wait, how many mice did the Blizzard bring? These are some frosty mice right now.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
none of
6.
the teams are same also. So.
Oh, yeah, wow, really just showing the flexibility of the Pokemon, or how many different archetypes the Pokemon can be played on, right? Even though they all probably have similar sets in terms of being the friend guards, Fang, etc. All very different teams in terms of the Pokemon front.
I'm pretty sure this is not arranged, right? Like bringing a lot of mouse hole, but maybe they inspire each other with team building, and that friend guard set makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are a few more mice here.
For context in week 3 as well, this matchup is actually 5-2 right now in the favor of the Samurais. So go Samurais, go us. But yeah, we also see a lot of mice here. We also see a lot of mice.
Yeah, this week I decided to feature two matches from Puppies versus Symbionts. This is because Puppies were not featured in week 1 and week 2. So we can move on to the next match here, which is between Susej and Tabu. And currently Puppies is up 4-2. Wow.
Yeah, so we got a chance to see one of the Puppy Symbiotes matchups. This one is very interesting for a number of reasons. One, we have Spain versus Spain in terms of Tabu and Susej. Both very strong 2022 players, especially Susej at the beginning of Series Bulk. He won 2 pretty big online tours back-to-back and honestly helped advance the meta in a number of ways at the time. We also see some of his accomplishments here in terms of getting top 4 last year with the Symbionts being their actual retains. So kind of trying to get revenge on his old team, also doing well in the Open, along with being good in some other draft leagues in PGL3 with the Murkrows. But looking at Tabu as well, also trying to get revenge on his old team. He was on the Puppies last year, and similarly a very strong 2022 player, being the original creator of the team that won Worlds in terms of the 6-hour broth and some of the movesets there. Won NPA as well with the Puppies last year, so maybe trying to recreate some of that with the Symbionts. Has also done well in some online competitions, winning the Battle Dome 4, and similarly has draft league experience winning PGL2 with the Hydreigans.
Yeah, both players very young and they have very strong presence. Every time they join an online tour, they just do very well. And not just online tours, the draft leagues, I just see them everywhere. And they're just gamers, you know, like every week they will put in the time to practice.
Absolutely. I also know the Spanish community is particularly close. I don't know if these two friends or these two players are friends specifically, but I'm sure they know a decent amount of each other, at least like through their other connections in the Spanish community. So yeah, pretty cool matchup.
So I think these are the teams that they have.
Okay, interesting. Looks like Susej is bringing. This looks like the team that Animus or Kyle Livinghouse used in Orlando regionals, I believe, or a very similar composition. While Tabu is kind of going for that Great Tusk Talonflame combination.
Is this a Yotam team?
It's similar to Yotam's, but it looks like there's an Amoonguss over the Gothitelle, which offers its own similarities. Kind of cover a little bit more for, say, a Trick Room combination, wanted redirection for the Goldango to have a little bit more flexibility in his game plans. I think the Goldango is also a bit different on this composition. I don't know if that was on Yotam's team either. But either way, interesting matchup.
Yep, but unfortunately, I don't know whether Tyranitar wants to come.
Yeah, the Tyranitar is interesting. You could call it, right? Because obviously it does well into the Volcarona. It threatens good damage on the Iron Bundle. Does well into the Dragonite unless it has low kick, in which case you might be forced to Terra. It threatens super effective damage on 4 of Susej's 6 Pokemon, but because the Great Tusk puts on so much pressure, it might be like a little bit of a difficult thing. But we'll see. It could be a bit of a call.
Yeah. Okay, so this match is through a YouTube video, and let's see if the quality is okay. Oh, it's pretty okay. So we're watching from Susej's point of view. What would he lead, right?
I'm gonna assume it's Mousehold plus something, right? If you have a Mousehold, right, like there you go. So we see Mousehold Goldango versus Tyranitar Talonflame. So this is interesting because we don't really know the item on Talonflame's end. So if it is, say, like a safety goggles, it might prevent it taking some like additional chip over time from the sand. Terra Water from the Goldango. So I guess just wanting to essentially just covering a dark move in that slot potentially if he's going for a Super Fang with the Mousehold. That way you can just kind of throw some damage into the T-Tar or the Talonflame, and then after that set up some Naked Rains.
Yeah, I think that team composition on the opposite end is just it makes a lot of sense, very strong. Like even if Tyranitar is weak to like make it rain, then you can just Terra and threaten the Terra to resist it, right? But Tabu actually chooses to switch Tyranitar out, bring in the Great Tusk. It might take unnecessary damage. Then the Terra Water is coming off now. Baby Doll Eyes goes into Great Tusk.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So no Tailwind. So yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. He's saying he doesn't have the speed control right now, especially since the Talonflame assumingly just it should outspeed both Pokemon, so you can just Tailwind the next turn. You probably won't Feint to like a Super Fang, Make It Rain, and it's unlikely they go for the Super Fang Shadow Ball into Talonflame, right? So interesting repositioning here from Tabu's end while Susej is just threatening these Make It Rains, right?
Yeah. The Tailwind can come out now, then you will try and do as much damage to the Goldango. But I think the turn 1 Terra Water is quite cool, and it's actually working out in this position here.
Yeah, even though it might have seemed like you kind of just blew your Terra turn 1, right now it's working really well for him. You see the close combat going. Is that a crit? That did a lot of damage. Yeah, it doesn't look like it was a crit. Susej making a really good defensive switch right there, and then assuming we'll see him make it rain. Yep. There's the Make It Rain right there from the Goldango, and this is looking very good for Susej, right? Because you just have the Great Tusk slot pinned with Extreme Speed. If you try to switch out to, say, Tyranitar to resist, you might just get Make It Rain again. On the Talonflame, it could go for a Will-O-Wisp into the Dragonite just to try to resist some of that damage, but even though that could win you the turn, it might not win you the game, right?
Yeah. I think I would go for the Make It Rain, the Extreme Speed into the Great.
I guess extreme speeding the Talonflame makes sense, right? Yes. It's one Great Tusk. It's not threatening super effective damage on either Pokemon. Yep. The Great Tusk is under a lot of pressure as well, so there is like a bit of bias there to protect. And if you do just want to force out the Terra Ghost from the Talonflame, then we just see it knocked out regularly. Yeah. So and good not protect on Tabu's end as well, just calling that, you're not going to extreme speed me, right? So going for another close combat on the Dragonite, maybe just trying to get some more chip damage there to set up for, say, like a Rock Slide from the Tyranitar, or maybe something else he has to attack.
Yeah, because Tabu has very limited Tailwind turns left, and really needs to bring in 2 mons at a go to attack. But then, Susej actually goes for Nasty Plot instead. Now the Goldango is at +3 after the Make It Rain. then Tabu doesn't get 2 free switches. So the extreme speed on the Dragonite is still active. The Cork Drive
Yeah,
boosts
absolutely.
speed.
Or this is looking like it could turn around a little bit for Tabu, right? I'm not sure if the freeze drive will pick up a knockout into the Goldango, but potentially if he does want to just cover for say like a critical hit, or if he does just think the freeze drive can knock out, he could just switch the Dragonite back out into Mousehold, maybe even just protect on the Goldango, or if he calls like say a close combat again to the Dragonite slot, then he could just make it rain. But it looks like we're just going to see the extreme speed, just trying to pin this Great Tusk slot, saying, I'm going to live this freeze drive. Iron Bundle, only a 70 base power move, but we'll see if it does live.
I always see the Goldango live. No,
Yeah.
it went down.
Oh, it does.
Oh,
it does
it's
say,
a
the
crit.
critical.
You'll never know.
Yeah. So that's why, obviously, like you'll just say that I'm not going to get crit there, right? But it is a little interesting. Potentially could have gone for a Mousehold switch just to like try to have it locked up. But it's tricky there. You can't really blame Susej for that at all, right? Like it was pretty cool.
Very well said. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to do the protect plus switch in Mousehold, because the tailwind turns you can also help to this play can also help to waste those tailwind turns, and the Talonflame is gone, so you can use your Iron Bundle in the back to fight that speed tie against opposing Iron Bundle. So now with that crit, we're down to 2v3. Susej has to think carefully how to take down this Tyranitar that's in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Because without the Goldango, he doesn't
Yep.
have Tyranitar, right? Especially if like we can assume that it's an Assault Vest. Even if say he reads into the Terra Flying that a lot of the Tyranitars are, you're really not going to do too much damage to it, right? Because the Assault Vest and just Tyranitar's like naturally high special defense. So you can just start spamming Rock Slide here with the Tyranitar, and then your Iron Bundle. Even if they target into the Iron Bundle with the Freeze Dry, then you're just getting free damage with your Tyranitar, right? So yeah, that crit really turned things around for Tabu.
Tabu is very limited with Terra option as well, so
Yeah, absolutely.
still a bit tough for Tabu to try and clinch this. So it's all down to like Tyranitar's bulk.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is he has to hit his Rock Slides too.
Yeah.
100% accurate move, and who knows, maybe like he ends up missing those Rock Slides because he got the crit. But we'll see. Susej is repositioning a little bit, wanting to get like extra bulk on his Iron Bundles, so he can take some more Rock Slides, maybe take a combination of Rock Slide, Freeze Dry. We'll see.
Ooh, activates the Terra right away for Tabu's side. It goes onto
the Terra
Ghost.
on the Iron Bundle. Ghost, okay, that's interesting. That's something that's been popping up a lot, just to prevent some fake outs into that slot. Also would have been good to prevent an extreme speed there as well.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, then Dragonite is essentially useless. It cannot attack it cannot attack the Iron Bundle well, then it does not much damage into Tyranitar.
Yeah. I always see the double connect with the Rock Slide though, but this is a little interesting because it does seem like he still has to hit these Rock Slides because the Tyranitar didn't Terra. He does have Hydro Pump pressure into the Tyranitar slot, but still might not be enough for the knockout, right? If it's holding the Assault Vest.
Yep. Overall, Tabu really played well to fight back, and this is a very good position now. You just IC win, just make sure your attacks hit. Have a lot of command.
Yeah, absolutely. And Susej is doing a good job scouting out the protect potentially on Tabu's end. So now he could just try to target that down again with a Freeze Dry. Tabu did get an Icy Wind off into both of these Pokemon, but depending on how fast I don't remember if we saw a Booster Energy on Susej then. Do you recall?
Susej has. So now it's boosted +1 speed.
So yeah, even if Tabu does get, say, another Icy Wind, Tyranitar outspeed, and so the Tyranitar might just have to 1v3 this, right? Because the Freeze Dry could go into the Iron Bundle and knock it out there, but that might just be enough for Tabu if he can just get all of his Rock Slides off and win the game.
Oh, you're right. And then Tabu goes for the double protect and fails.
The other thing to note is if the Dragonite does have low kick, and this might just lock up the game, right? Because even if you get the double knockout here, you can just bring in your Dragonite low kick Tyranitar, and because you committed the Terra on the Iron Bundle, then the low kick should just hook up.
I wonder if like Tabu could have just attacked there, cause it would have been a speed tie, right?
Yeah,
Between both.
absolutely. So maybe he does just assume that maybe yeah, there it goes, the low kick on the Dragonite. So assuming that he just did wanted to make sure he had his Iron Bundle around for when the Dragonite came in, and then he could just knock it out with a nice one.
That makes sense.
So yeah, great job on Susej then just recovering from the crit, right? Maybe it does beg a question whether Tabu needed to Terra Ghost with his Iron Bundle, because if you say had the Terra Flying option on the Tyranitar, it might just completely change the game.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, very well played on Susej and
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, very exciting match. Susej did a really good job applying a lot of pressure with that early Mousehole Goldango lead, getting up his nasty plots, throwing off the Make It Rains, and potentially getting in Tabu's head, right? Because intuitively you would think that the Terra Flying might be the option you want to go for the Tyranitar, but Tabu might have been feeling a little bit of pressure in terms of going for that Terra Ghost or covering for some different options, just worrying about like that extreme speed freeze dry double up. So yeah, a lot going on right there, but Susej is bringing it home.
I think it might also be like identifying open team sheets right away, just before the game, because he identified that Terra Water on the Goldango would work all the way until the Iron Bundle is forced to come in. So he called the leads right, he Terra on turn 1, and then just Goldango itself just put on so much pressure, and it helped, right, in getting ahead in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The Terra, like without the Iron Bundle for Tabu to get really strong damage into the Goldango between the Friend Guard, the naturally defensive bulk of Goldango, the defensive typing of water in general. So yeah, pretty good job on Susej and just identifying that as his win condition.
So now Tabu has to like adjust, and this is the adjustment to go for the Talon Flame Great Tusk. Is there a short form for this core? Talon Tusk.
Talonflame, great. Maybe Talon Tusk, Talon,
yeah.
Bird fan, who knows?
Bird fan.
OnlyFans, who knows? But we see like an Iron Bundle Goldango, a little bit of a switch up here.
Yeah, no mouse hole to support. Then Talonflame can just go for the Tailwind here and just attack. But
yeah, absolutely.
But I think you also have to take note that the Goldango can Terra Water.
Yeah, and assumingly if this Iron Bundle is max speed with the
booster energy,
with the booster energy, then it does just outspeed the Great Tusk anyway, and can just fire off like an Icy Wind. And even if you lose it this turn, it could carry some momentum for you later in the game. And if Tabu decides to try to target down the Goldango instead of the Iron Bundle, then you can just Icy Wind again and just pick up the knockout on the Dawn, or sorry, on the Great Tusk.
The Dawn fan. Yeah, so this makes sense again. Like you Terra Water to save yourself. So Icy Wing. Oh no!
Oh, we see a miss on the Great Tusk. Oh,
no, Susej. Ouch.
That's so tragic. I guess revealing to us that the Talonflame is the covert cloak because it didn't get the speed drop, but just going for the Make It Rain immediately. But very tragic miss on the Icy Wind. But maybe Tabu wanted the Great Tusk to be knocked out to bring his Pokemon on the back. So we'll see though.
So yeah, this is a different timeline now. Tailwind turns will then be like slowly whittled out, and actually Tabu actually goes for the protect on the Great Tusk. So protects all around, then only Talonflame will attack here. But both players really just trying to be careful here.
Yeah, it looks like they were just scouting out some protect, seeing who wants to do what.
Yep.
I'm not sure if the Brave Bird will pick up the knockout on the Iron Bundle here, right? Because even though it has a low base HP, it has a very high physical defense, right? So if the Brave Bird doesn't pick up the knockout, you can just pick up a KO on the Great Tusk with, say, a Freeze Dry, and then Shadow Ball into the Talonflame. Or if you want to carry some momentum for later turns, you could go for a Nasty Plot, because it's not like you need to remove the Talonflame immediately, right? It's not doing too much outside of Brave Birding.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's sussed out that from the open team sheets, you know that the Talonflame does not have Taunt. Ooh, the Brave Bird doesn't kill. Then
yeah, so
Icy Wind should take out the Great Tusk here, and the double protect from Susej in the previous turn, that was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there should be about 2 turns of
I
Tailwind
think
left
so, yeah.
right now. So if he opts to go for say another double protect, there will be 1 turn, and then yeah, especially since this Gold Dango right here is Terra Water, it might allow for Tabu to bring in his Iron Bundle. Yep, and now we actually could see the freeze dry pick up in the Gold Dango without the crit.
It gets chipped quite a lot with that Earthquake, because Great Tusk is very powerful.
Yeah,
So it might be in range.
The Earthquake. Yeah, the Earthquake chip going a long way here. I'm assuming we're going to see a protect on the Gold Dango here. You could go for a big read, but obviously the read might not do anything for you. So this could just allow you to reposition if you sack the Iron Bundle and then say go bring in the Mouse Hold. So you can redirect any freeze dries and then just go for it, make it rain. Right?
Yeah. Tabu's like Terra seems to not work in this matchup, so he hasn't been activating the Terra.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
So we see actually the protects on Tabu's end, maybe just scouting out the protect on the Gold Dango. Oh, going for a taunt. So maybe Tabu is just trying to lock up the position here, not wanting to give Susej a free switch into whatever he has in the back. And maybe now he just wants to try to fire off some rock slides with a Tyranitar in the back and try to carry his momentum that way. Because if you're Tabu, you might be able to go for, say, like an Icy Wind. And if you have actually Assurance on the Tyranitar, or if you bring in this Goldango, right, you can go for, say, Freeze Dry into the Goldango slot, and then you could just go for Shadow Ball into the Iron Bundle. So, yeah. Tabu has a chance to bring this back.
I think in the previous turn, the taunt into the Iron Bundle was covering for the Protect Goldango plus switch in Mouse Hold play. So quite smart.
Then, yeah, great call out there.
Yeah, but then Susej doesn't call the bluff and just keeps it in. But then brings in like he takes out the Talonflame, which is good. Then brings in the Goldango on the opposing end.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though Tabu is down 4-2, he has so much offensive pressure with Pokemon, right? The Terra Water is committed on the Goldango, so now he just has to switch it out so he doesn't lose that Pokemon. Especially since he committed the protect and might not want to go for a double protect there. He doesn't have too much damage into the Goldango, so we see the freeze dry go into the Mouse Hold, does just under 50%. Seeing Icy Wind. This also will reveal, we saw the code book on the Talonflame earlier. So we'll see what Tabu goes with. Oh, the Nasty Plot. So potentially saying that the Iron Bundle isn't really applying too much pressure here right now. Assuming that he won't go for a freeze dry into the Iron Bundle potentially, or maybe just not caring, saying like if you go for a freeze dry into the Iron Bundle, you need a 2-hit KO me and put another freeze dry there. And if you're doing that, that means you're not hitting my Goldango.
I think Tabu has been playing very strategic and then just like taking care of the heavy amount of damage in the first few turns. Then now left with these last 2 mons. That was a very good nasty plot on that turn. And then yeah, now it's time to see whether his mons are bulky enough to survive the onslaught of 4 mons. Trying to do the reverse.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just the combination of like the Earthquake chip early on, the taunts from the Talonflame, giving him a little bit more flexibility to play with in terms of his targeting, or just capitalizing on his position, right? Just thinking like, okay, if Susej knows that his Iron Bundle is taunted, then he's going to want it to go out at some point, right? But just denying that free switch is maybe what Tabu was going for.
Yeah, but the tough part is that Susej's Iron Bundle already went for Icy Wind, so both the Goldango and the Iron Bundle that we see on the field now are slow. So it really comes down to bulk. And I don't know whether Tabu is being greedy there, but it makes sense. Go for another nasty plot and then pray for all the Make It Rains to make an impact. Oh, the Dragonite is AV. I think Tabu knows that too.
Yeah, so that probably could be why Tabu is going for like so many of those nasty plots, right? He's like, okay, I need to break through this Dragonite somehow. But the other thing to note is because he committed the Terra to the onto the Goldango, he doesn't really threaten any damage at all into Tabu's Goldango, right? Like even though Terra Blast or Terra Flying Terra Blast might be resisted by Tabu's Goldengo, it's better than what he has to offer right now. So Tabu might be able to just reverse sweep this game with this +4 Goldengo.
Yeah, Tabu hasn't Terra yet. Then maybe it's just Steel on his Goldengo. I'm not sure.
It could be Terra Steel, but he also could just opt to go for Terra Ghost again on
On
Iron
the-
Bundle, right? If he doesn't want to die to a extreme speed right there. So what he could do is saying, okay, if I don't want to get knocked out by this extreme speed, so I can go for an Icy Wind, make sure my Goldengo outspeeds this Dragonite, and then fire off and make it rain.
Nice, yeah, so that's what's happening here. That makes sense. It's really down to Goldengo though. I don't know whether +4 can even make much impact onto
Yeah,
Dragonite.
absolutely.
Ooh, good call.
And we see the defensive switch from Susej and maybe trying to live this +4 and make it rain, but Goldengo is so strong it might just faint anyway. And the Icy Wind does so much even with the Assault Vest. So on maybe revealing to us that the Dragonite is the inner focus variant rather than multi-scale.
That's true.
So yeah, it looks like Tabu is about to take this game 4, or this game 4, game 2.
Yeah, very well done though. Wow, like just down to 2 mons, but making sure and just pinning the opposing Goldengo and then force the Goldengo to switch out after the nasty plot, right, from Susej end. Then go for 2 nasty plots to ensure maximum damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Tabu honestly looked very in control of that game.
Yes.
It might have seemed difficult for him early on, just losing Talonflame early, not being able to get any knockouts with the Great Tusk, because that's what you would normally expect, like your ground fighting base 140 attack mon to do, right? Just get those knockouts with the headlong rushes, the close combats, but no, just opting instead to go for a little bit of a slow play route with a pretty hyper offensive team. So really cool diversity in playstyle from Tabu right there.
Yeah, very impressive. Very very cool idea to turn it back with the last 2 mons. I just want to say that the previous 3 matches that we featured on stream are all 2-0 matches, and then finally we have the third game. But the quality is very good between these two. Like, I would say somewhat veteran players already, although they are very young.
Absolutely. Showing why Spain is a very strong country for VGC, right? Both players bringing the same, or Tabu making the adjustment, dropping the T-Tar in that matchup, but both players making it difficult for each other to try to win this set.
Oh, that's true.
And
I
this
think
is
Tabu didn't have to bring the Tita. Like then the Great Tusk helped with that chip damage. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is pretty important for the symbionts, right? Because if Tabu loses this, then at least from what we know right now, Puppies just went outright in 5-2. So Tabu just trying to make sure his team has a chance for the rest of the week.
So true.
But we see the Tyranitar come
Yeah.
back. So maybe just adjusting to this Iron Bundle Goldengo lead, even though he ended up winning the game, maybe Tabu didn't like how some of the turns went. Or just reading into some other adjustment.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Tailwind is okay here, but then like he has to play so like he really has to take care of that Terra Water on the Goldengo. So yeah.
Yeah,
Quite
absolutely.
tricky
So
for Tabu.
yeah, so I would assume we just see a Tailwind from the Talonflame here. It doesn't have too much else to do. You could go for the Brave Bird into the Iron Bundle, but that might not carry you too much further in the game. While this Tyranitar is under a bit of pressure, say like a Hydro Pump, Make It Rain, right? That could pick up the knockout, but he does just go for the Brave Bird onto the Goldengo. So maybe just trying to cover for Terra Water, but if the Tyranitar does have assurance, this could just pick up the knockout into the Goldengo or even Crunch. Maybe just trying to force out the Terra Water at that slot.
And then
we see the nasty ball.
Yeah. So is this gonna backfire on Susej and
and we see the assurance. So there goes the Goldengo. So even though it was a nasty plot, he didn't have any more future plans for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for the Goldengo. Honestly, playing like some Sword and Shield Moltres players, right? You see the nasty plot with your very strong special attacker, and you're like, yeah, and they're like, they're not going to attack into me. I can Terra Water. Like, why would they do that? But yep, Tabu just disrespecting, or honestly paying a lot of respect to the Goldengo, saying like, I don't want to deal with this for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Susej, like there's a little bit of a blunder because maybe the Terra Water would have saved it.
Possibly, yeah. But then you may end up hitting yourself with freeze dry
Yeah.
later, right? So a little bit of conditioning going on,
True.
where Tabu might understand, like, okay, every single time he's gone for Terra Water, now he knows it's like might pin me later into a freeze dry position, right? So I don't even think he's gonna Terra Water here. I'm just gonna assurance him, and if it does, then if he knocks out my Talonflame, I can just bring in my Iron Bundle and freeze dry it, and then just threaten Rock Slide on the rest of the team. But now we see another adjustment in the Volcarona.
Yeah, so does Susej have another plan in the back of in his sleeves? Like, is he content with just the Goldango going down on turn 1, then get the Volcarona? I think this Volcarona is like quiver dancing, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would assume Tabu goes for Rock Slide every time here, right? There's no reason to. There's no reason not to in front of both Mons that will get hit super effective by it. But because of that, you might just be forced to Terra with the Volcarona.
Yes.
And it feels like he's so ahead with his position, he could just read into that and just go for another freeze dry
Freeze dry, yeah. Then
or you
Susej
could
also
just say, no, sorry, you go.
I think Susej also said that, like, if I don't Terra my Goldango, I can Terra my Volcarona, but everything falls prey to Iron Bundle.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see the protect on the Iron Bundle, so slot. You don't want to take too much damage from the Rock Slide. Oh, another protect from Tabu's end. Maybe just scouting out the Terra, trying to just see what this Volcarona is going to go for. He knows that it will likely go for a Terra, but you can just cover that with the Rock Slide if it doesn't. Then you just likely would knock out the Volcarona. Maybe didn't want to get Icy Wounded on his Iron Bundle as well. But he gets good chip here for the Rock Slide.
Okay, so Iron Bundle takes damage first. Both Iron Bundle takes damage, then Volcarona. Even with the Quiver Dance, it's still slower.
Yeah, absolutely. We just see the power of the booster energy, making these Ice Water Regileckies right here, just outspeeding everything in the format. So I guess we see Susej trying to go for the speed tie here, right? Or most likely a speed tie. Trying to get an Icy Wind off, or maybe just protecting here, trying to set up more of like an end game for his Volcarona. Because Tabu already protected with his Iron Bundle, you are pretty safe in going for an Icy Wind and lowering speed, and then having your Volcarona outspeed at the turn after.
Oh no, Tabu did not go for Icy Wind, went for the freeze dry into the Volcarona protect.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe he was just reading into the Volcarona, attacking that turn, and wasn't confident enough in the Icy Wind plus Rock Slide picking up. Oh no, and the Rock Slide misses on the Iron Bundle. That's pretty bad for Tabu right there. Especially since the Iron Bundle on hints and underspeeds the Volcarona, so you could just bug buzz that slot, pick up the knockout because of Iron Bundle's low special defense, and then you could throw a Hydro Pump into the T-Tar to just make sure it's chipped for an attack later. You can go for another Icy Wind if you want to, just get some spread damage on the board, make a potential switch, lower its speed. But yeah, this is looking like a very strong position for Susej after a really poor turn 1.
Yeah, unlucky for Tabu though. Like, that the Rock Slide would have taken the Iron Bundle down, right? Then
it might have. There's a chance of this.
Seems like it's a roll, yeah.
Yeah, because Iron Bundle has such high defense, and we don't entirely know how this Tyranitar trained. Maybe it decided to sacrifice some attack for speed because it's a Tailwind team. Maybe the Rock Slide wouldn't pick up anyway, but it's hard to tell, honestly. We see Terra coming out likely on the Tyranitar. So I guess we're seeing a Terra flying, so maybe just covering for a Hydro Pump in that slot, not wanting to take too much damage, and ensuring that he can get this Rock Slide off.
Yeah. There's a free strike. Oh, but then the
Susej is not giving him any room to breathe. Just double target. Knockout? No, it doesn't. Wow. Okay then. So because of that, then what do we see this turn? Like, wow. Oh, the Icy Wind did a lot to the Volcarona as well. So is it just in Rock Slide range?
No,
because of the crit.
Yeah. So
wow, what a game of VGC.
Luck has been this is VGC. Luck has been traded on both sides. But the double
the Terra Blast.
Yeah, this makes sense. The double with the Terra Blast would have taken out regardless of the crit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tabu just wanted to get this Volcarona off the field. Obviously not expecting Icy Wind, Rock Slide to pick up. Really great call on Susej then to get a really large amount of damage into the Tyranitar. Just put it into, say, another Freeze Dry, right? And because the Iron Bundle on Tabu's end has that speed drop, I guess it's the Dragonite, so it doesn't matter as much. But still, the chip damage does go a decent amount.
But he forces Susej down to just 2 mons.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see if this is going to be a little tricky for Susej to come back from, because maybe even with the second speed, the Dragonite might not even outspeed, right, because of the booster energy, and just depending on its investment as well. And so it'll be difficult for Susej just to remove this Iron Bundle outright, because he threatens Freeze Dry into either of these Pokemon for a large amount of damage. Freeze Dry might just pick up on Susej's Iron Bundle as well with the Sand. So yeah, pretty tricky position, even though he got the last.
I think Tabu correctly identified that the Iron Bundle is the key, cause all the Terras on Susej's side is weak to Iron Bundle. So now, I think the E-Speed into the Iron Bundle makes sense, cause you really want to do as much damage as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But because of the Sand, the Sand is away, so the Iron stick around one more turn. So, and he gets a Goldengo, so this might just end up cleaning up the game for Tabu, since Susej doesn't really have a strong amount of damage in front of it. You might just have to throw Hydro up there if you really want to get something that sticks. Or you're also just forced to knock out this Iron Bundle, right? Because it just threatens so much damage to the Dragonite. So, yeah, Tabu might be able to just lock this game up. But unless the Extreme Speed does pick up on the Iron Bundle, we see it Protect.
Yeah, Protect makes sense to force the extreme Speed to come out. Do you go for the Nasty Plot here, like just to secure more damage?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you do, because say
time,
2 Hydro Pumps might just pick up on it, right? So yeah, I would assume you probably just go for the Make It Rain and say, I'll just make this a 2v1, and then I think I can win my Goldengo versus the Dragonite. Now, at this point, he actually has the opportunity to Nasty Plot.
Okay.
Because, Tabu, or Susej, he's just forced to knock out this Iron Bundle, otherwise KO the Dragonite with a Freeze Dry. So Tabu seems like he just has this game locked up.
You'll see how useful this Assault Vest on the Dragonite is, but I think Nasty Plot makes sense here, yeah. And the previous Protect, was very good from Tabu's end.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the Dragonite really doesn't have too much to threaten the Goldengo, it only has and a low kick. So you can really only hit it with Ice Spinner at this point, and I don't know, this Dragonite might end up getting too dizzy and just fainting to the combination of multiple Make It Rains.
The Tabu did not bring Great Task. Wow,
yeah, really cool adjustment from Tabu's end, because the first 2 games, the Gold. So might have recognized that the Great Tusk wasn't really doing too much, because the Iron Bundle just outspeeds it anyway in Tailwind, so you can just Freeze Dry it or Icy Wind it. The Dragonite just doesn't really care too much about the Great Tusk, so just recognizing that Great Tusk wasn't doing too much for him and deciding to just adjust again with the Tyranitar. So really showing the flexibility off of the team that he brought in terms of different game plans. Even though Talonflame came, every single match went for different plays each game, I think.
Even this game didn't set up Tailwind, just went for the Brave Bird plus Assurance. So
yeah, absolutely, making a great call turn.
Very cool comeback. It's a very cool comeback from Tabu. Lost game 1, then adjust in games 2 and 3. Making I think the Iron Bundle is the most important mon, cause the Freeze Dry just threatens everything, no matter what Terra you become. The Volcarona was forced to Terra. If the Goldengo wants to Terra, it will also be forced to Terra. Then Iron Bundle is kept safely in the back just to attack it. So very cool strategy from Tabu, and it really worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Tabu is showing off how the Talonflame Great Tusk combination can really just have so many different offensive pins, and because of all the coverage it has, you might feel like you need to Terra one of your Pokemon just to make it through the turn, but then Tabu able to just bring in something else in the back just to punish, say, like the Terra Grass from the front. It's like, oh, I can Terra Grass to live the rock slide this turn, but then just eat up an Icy Wind, Terra flying later, right? So pretty overwhelming to deal with. A ton of offensive pressure from Tabu, and he utilizes perfect.
It's more of like Talonflame, Great Tusk, Iron Bundle, right? I think it just works.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just nothing that resists the combination. So now it says 4-2 here currently on the spreadsheet.
We will update.
Actually, yeah, it'll update soon. So actually 3-4 Puppy Symbionts. So it looks like we'll have A-Ray turn versus Chichia. What a great closing match, honestly, in that week. That's pretty cool.
Very cool. Like,
Another interesting
think-
thing to note, this was Susej's first
Uh-huh.
week of the season, actually.
Oh.
Very strong player, but this is the first time he fielded. So maybe didn't have as many reps as, say, Tabu, since I think this is Tabu's third week. So Tabu just having like potentially having a little bit of a mental edge because he's been able to play so many weeks coming in.
Makes sense.
So yeah.
I
Either
think
way, great set.
Puppies has quite a lot of. I think they struggle from choosing the players to
No,
play every
absolutely.
week.
Yeah, they have a lot of great
Yeah,
options. So
yeah.
it makes sense why Susej, it might have taken a couple of Susej to come out. Maybe he was busy as well. But regardless, even if he lost this week, I thought he did have a great showing. Just ended up getting called out a little bit by Tabu on some of those turns. And I don't know. I wouldn't be too sad about Susej.
I'm trying to check, like, is the Chichot or A-Ray match played? But I don't think so.
Yeah, when is that?
Oh.
I wouldn't think it's played. I don't know when it's scheduled for. Let me see.
Let's look
Check
at
real
when
quick.
games.
Oh, looks like they didn't put it there either.
Oh, yeah,
So, yeah.
okay.
Well, I guess getting played probably tomorrow since they're both European. So I wouldn't expect them to play at like 1, 2 a.m. their time.
So I didn't choose this match to be featured because Chicha was already like on stream, I think. Last week
Yeah,
or the week
makes
before.
sense.
Then if I were to do it, they also wouldn't have played the game in time. So we managed to feature like more players from the Symbionts this week. And then
Yeah, really showing off their talent.
yeah, and then both the matches that we saw were really cool.
So many households in this one too. We saw the puppies bring the same team 3 times. And
They
won all 3 of those matches.
don't the puppies
Wow,
like to
that's
do
pretty
that, right? Sometimes they like to do that. The teamwork.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, sometimes there's like this trend of like not just
Yeah.
with the puppies, but in general in NPA, where sometimes a team just ends up aligning on the 6 Pokemon they want to bring to a different matchup, even if like the scouting might be slightly different for their opponents. They just decide like this team is very strong, so we're going to grind together and figure out how to play this team and help each other out. So pretty cool to see that, honestly.
Then I guess the last thing just to touch on to like summarize the week for our stream here. We also have Crown versus United. It seems like the matches are still underway.
Both of these
not
teams
submitted
pick
yet.
up some momentum, right? Both teams haven't even tied on the season. They've
Mm.
lost all their matchups.
Yes.
So both really want to win here, and they have some heavy hitters left. In terms of Tang versus Willie, that should be a good match. Tang has kind of had Willie's number across draft leagues as well, so Willie's definitely motivated to try to get the run back here. Isuka versus Major Bowman. Isuka, one of the strongest Chinese players who goes like a bit under the radar. He had a pretty strong performance a couple World Cups ago as well. Well, Major Bowman got to commentate at Knoxville this weekend.
Knoxville.
So maybe he might be becoming a bit inspired whenever he plays Isuka.
Yeah, well said. Yep.
And lastly, we finally get to see Shaman come out. I think he played for the first time last week or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago versus Cruisers.
Versus Cruisers, yeah. So I believe he lost that matchup, but looks like he's coming back in. Still, definitely a strong player in his own right. So trying to get some momentum there with Ironman VGC. I don't know too much about him outside of also Chinese player, correct?
Ironman VGC is from Hong Kong. And recently both players, Ironman and Shaman, both did well in respective local tours in their countries. I was one of the TOs for the tour that Shaman won.
Okay, cool.
3 weeks ago. Yeah, so still has it in him. Except he's just generally busy. So obviously he's like maybe playing on Monday. Because right now in Singapore it's 9 a.m. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, maybe not wanting to play. Like,
Okay.
yeah, that makes sense.
So overall, Abhay was great casting with you. Oh my god, you're so like knowledgeable. Cause for me, I haven't been like playing Showdown much, so a lot of things like I couldn't predict well what the players did.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I almost consider myself like a fan of and actually playing sometimes. So I try to keep up quite a bit with what's going on, just like when I have the time to. And also just a lot of fun in general, just being a part of it. So yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on and whenever
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you
whenever
guys could capture, 20 frames of my camera.
I
See me from
is it
different
the
angles.
yeah, is it the connection? I'm not sure because I've been trying to
No,
fix
it's
it.
probably it's likely my internet. I'm on campus right now in my school,
Okay,
so it's likely just the internet.
cool. Yeah, I think I will get another chance to do the NPA stream when Popopo uh
Yeah, we need
goes
to
for
hijack
another
it from him. He's
regionals.
great.
Yeah, then
Yeah,
I'll
he's
invite
great,
you.
but I like doing this. So
Yeah, let's go. And it's nice to
yeah,
get managers on too. Like Yuki was the manager of the detectives, and then both of us are also here, like sharing our passion of the game.
yeah, absolutely. It's fun. Maybe next time we'll get a chance to like players too, because Yuki got to commentate MyStars, so
Hmm.
you might be able to be a bit of homers.
I'll see if I can make
Um,
it happen with the planning.
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I think I will want to put this like VOD up somewhere. So if you watched until this point, it will probably be on Popopo's YouTube channel because I think NPA doesn't have a channel yet. But thanks for coming to the NPA Twitch channel. Like, if we work well as a community, I think it makes more sense to build it up, and then keep NPA going. So this is why I did it here, and I don't really stream on my Twitch anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes sense to have things like a bit localized
Hmm.
on the NPA Twitch channel. I know we used to have like a different Twitch channel, but I guess the password got lost.
I don't remember.
So
Yeah.
yeah, trying to build this one up should be cool.
Okay, see you guys next week. I think yeah, Popopo will be taking over again, and
Yeah,
he'll
you'll get
probably
to
invite
go
someone
back to
else.
Italy.
But I think he can invite you as well if you want to come back on, or me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
might be free if he wants to have me. I'll see if I can.
I'll let him know. Okay, bye stream. Oh, I can rate someone, right? Let's do it.
Oh yeah, who's
Cause
streaming?
I have the chat in my OBS. Okay, let's. As you can. Oh, Panky's.
Okay, yeah,
Streaming.
sure, why not?
He's streaming a big best of 3 tournament. What's that? I don't.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe everyone can check it out.
Okay, go watch more VGC after uh watching Knoxville. Then you come and watch us. Then you go watch more VGC somewhere else.
Yeah, if you're not exhausted
Yeah.
from BGC all weekend, then you can watch Banky.
Did I set it up? Okay, I'll switch it down to the like lull screen. Bye.
But
Okay, we are